Chapter 15:18. Li Jinan was a little flustered. He asked angrily, "Second brother, do you really not welcome me?" Li Xiqing looked at him lazily and asked, "Why did you ask if you already knew?" Su Qianxi chuckled and gave Li Xiqing a nudge. She said, "How can you treat your brother like that? Be careful that the children learn from you." Li Xiqing hugged Su Qianxi tightly and whispered, "Don't worry. My son won't do that." Su Qianxi turned her head away in disgust and looked at Yi Yuyu. She was shocked and exclaimed, "Yuyu?" Ah. Yi Yuyu was a little embarrassed and said, "Hi, Qianqian. Oh my god, you're with my uncle?" Su Qianxi couldn't believe it. She looked at Li Jinan and said, "You're too fast." She had just heard that Yi Yuyu had gotten divorced a few days ago. How did she end up with Li Jinan in the blink of an eye? Ah, that's right. Li Jinan had already had some feelings for Yi Yuyu. When she heard that he was bringing someone home, she thought that since Yi Yuyu had just gotten divorced, it couldn't be her. Unexpectedly, Su Qianxi was dumbfounded when she came back. That was good. It was highly likely that they had gotten together before Yi Yuyu had gotten a divorce, hadn't it? With that thought, Su Qianxi suddenly felt a little sinister. But that feeling was getting stronger and stronger. The way she looked at Yi Yuyu and Li Jinan was filled with curiosity. Yi Yuyu was a little embarrassed by Su Qianxi's straightforward words and said, "Well, it wasn't that fast." Li Jinan was a lot more at ease. He put his arm around Yi Yuyu's shoulder and said, "It wasn't that fast. I brought her home to meet her." She turned to look at Li Mosin and said, "Mosin, get Desu and Ursu out. Let them meet their future aunt." When Li Mosin heard that, he immediately turned and ran in. He shouted, "Desu Ursu, has Grandpa been bored at home lately?" Su Qianxi couldn't bear it and said, "I was thinking that with Lu Sa accompanying Grandpa, he would probably get along well with her. The children are a little noisy, and I was afraid that they would disturb his rest." "How could that be? After all, he's my great-grandson. Grandpa can't wait to dote on him. How could I dislike him?" Li Jinan pulled Yi Yuyu to sit down and said, "Grandpa's room is soundproof, and the house is huge. If Grandpa finds it too noisy, he'll find a place to hide. Don't be afraid." Su Qianxi nodded. "You are so thoughtful. I did not think of this." However, Li Xiqing saw through his intentions at a glance and said, "This may be one of the reasons, but the most fundamental reason is that you want to use the children, right?" When Li Jinan heard that, his expression turned serious. He said, "Second brother, how could you think that way? I'm doing this for grandfather's own good. I'm afraid that he'll be bored at home. That's why I thought of bringing the children back." "Well, you used the children's mouths to tell Mom and Dad that you had a girlfriend. When they interrogated you, you pretended to tell them about it, and then tricked them. TSK. Li Xiqing couldn't bear to look at it and said, "What an unfilial son." Yi Yuyu and Su Qianxi hadn't thought of that at all. They both looked at Li Jinan. Chapter 15:19. These words were tantamount to a direct admission. Yi Yuyu secretly clicked her tongue. What a deep trap. She thought he simply thought that Elder Tang might be bored at home, so he wanted to take the kids home. Who knew there was a deeper meaning behind it? Li Xiqing stopped talking, and then there was the sound of children jumping upstairs. When she saw Li Jinan, she ran down with a smile and shouted, "Uncle! Auntie is here too." Li Jianyue had bathed with Yi Yuyu previously, so she had a deeper impression of her than Li Mosin. Li Jinan waved at Li Jianyue and said, "Ursu, come here." Li Ursu immediately jumped over. Su Qianxi was shocked and yelled, "Be careful." Li Ursu, on the other hand, was bold. She quickly jumped down and ran toward Li Jinan. She threw herself onto his lap and called out coquettishly, "Little uncle." He picked her up and asked, "Did Daddy and Mommy take you to school recently?" "No, I've been taking exams recently." Li Jianyue giggled. "The test was too easy. I finished it in one go and every question was correct." "Oh, what test?" "It's the entrance exam. In September, I'll be going to primary school," Li Jianyue said proudly. "My brothers are going to primary school too, but Brother Mosin seems to be able to enter the 3rd grade. So powerful? Skipping a grade?" When Li Jinan said that, he looked in Li Xiqing's direction. "Yes, I skipped a grade. I passed the test. I scored 100 points in English, mathematics, and English. Li Xiqing sounded a bit satisfied. She could have been in the 5th grade, but the jump should not be too big. It is not good for her future development. Why do I feel like you're showing off? No, I'm just making a statement. Li Xiqing's tone was flat. If you want to take the child home, hurry up. I still have work to do. Isn't sister-in-law at home? You should go. She's coming with me. Li Xiqing hugged his wife tightly and said, I'm worried about the children at home. Take them away quickly. Li Jianyue blinked and asked, Daddy, where are we going? Go to Grandpa's house and stay for a few days. Lately, Great-Grandpa has been alone at home and is very bored. I hope you guys can accompany him. Su Qianxi said. In a few days, when Grandpa and Grandma come back from their trip, you can come home. She looked at Li Jianxian, who was walking over, and said, Brother, we can play with great-grandfather again. Li Jianxian nodded his head and replied, All right, Dad. I'm done with my homework. Take a look. Handing over the book, Li Xiqing quickly flipped through it. About 2 minutes later, he nodded and said, Okay, but the last question is wrong. Come here, I'll explain it to you. Li Jianxian walked over obediently, stood aside, and looked at the book. Li Xiqing pointed at the questions and began to explain them in detail. That sounded familiar to Yu. She replied, This question seems a little difficult. Which grade is it for? Chapter 15-20. Li Jianxian listened attentively. Li Xiqing's explanation was very detailed. Even Yu and Li Jinnan had already come up with the question that they hadn't seen. After explaining, Li Jianxian picked up the pen and did it again. This time, it was completely correct. Li Xiqing nodded his head in satisfaction and said, Go on. Pack up and follow your uncle to Grandpa's house. Oh. Li Jianxian put the notebook away. With a natural expression, he quickly walked up the stairs. Li Jinnan clicked his tongue and shook his head. He asked, I say, second brother, how did you teach these kids? I taught them myself. Teach the 3 of them at the same time. Li Jinnan looked at Li Jianyue in his arms and felt that it was a little unrealistic. Li Xiqing also looked at Li Jianyue and nodded his head. In a meaningful tone, he said, How much the 3 of them can learn will depend on luck. Li Jinnan felt the same way. Once again, he wondered if the hospital had swapped the wrong babies when they were giving birth. Li Jianyue seemed to know that they were talking about her. She blinked her eyes and looked around. Then she asked, Daddy, are you and Mommy going to the hospital to see little brother tomorrow? Yeah. I'm going to see if little brother is obedient in Mommy's tummy. Li Xiqing's gaze softened. He tilted his head and stroked Su Qianxi's belly. I hope his brain will develop better in the future. Su Qianxi reached out and pushed him away. She glared at him. Li Xiqing chuckled and stood up. Let's go to the office. Leave the children to third brother. Li Jinnan was a little confused. Aren't you afraid that I'll sell these children? Sell them. I have work to do with your sister-in-law. Li Xiqing said as he held Su Qianxi's hand. When you go out later, remember to bring their luggage with you. Let them carry it themselves. Don't help them carry it, especially the little one. Li Jianyue snorted and pouted. Daddy is too naughty. I don't want to carry the luggage. No, Uncle isn't here to help you carry the luggage. You have to carry it yourself. Li Xiqing rejected. Li Jianyue was a little unhappy. She got off Li Jinnan and ran up to the 2nd floor. Su Qianxi was a little unhappy to see her daughter. She nudged Li Xiqing and said, They are still young. Don't be too strict with them. You have to teach them well when they're young. You spoil them too much. Li Xiqing took her hand and said, The children of the Li family can't be raised as children. Grandpa is old now. You don't know how we were raised when we were young. The memory was still fresh in Li Jinnan's mind. He said, Grandfather believed in this saying. A filial son is born of the rod. The moment we were disobedient, he would give us a few strokes of the rod until we became obedient. Li Xiqing said, It has been proven to be very effective. Just look at third brother. Third elderly. Second brother is more effective. After all, he is grandfather's favorite grandson. Well, at least I won't screw up when everyone is looking forward to it. I won't be whipped and lose a layer of my skin. At least I asked for my wife myself. Nothing is set in stone yet. You can get past the old man. But can you handle Mom? Li Xiqing looked at Li Jinnan with disdain. Third young Master Li, why are you still so naive? Second young Master Li is just as rude as before. Li Jinnan was speechless. He reached into his pocket and took out a pack of cigarettes. Chapter 1521. Li Jinnan had just taken out a cigarette. When he heard that, he immediately stuffed it back in and said angrily, "Why aren't you leaving?" Li Xiqing's lips curled up slightly. He held his wife's hand and opened the door. When they finally left, Li Jinnan stuffed the pack of cigarettes back and said, "Children, are you done? Ursu is still packing. Uncle, wait for us." Li Jinxian's voice was very loud. It came from the second floor. After waiting for about 10 minutes, the little ones dragged their small boxes down. Each of them had a small box. Li Jianyue was carrying a pink ice snow princess box with cute little stickers on it. She was also holding a big Barbie doll in her arms. It was obviously a little difficult to carry the small box. She pouted and said, "Daddy is bad. Ursa can't carry it. Uncle, it's heavy." Li Jinnan glanced at it and went forward to weigh it. He said, "It's really a little heavy." Li Jianyue nodded and immediately said, "Right? Uncle, you think so too, right? Then can you help Ursa carry it?" "Thank you, Uncle." Li Jianyue had a pair of big eyes, and she looked at him with a pair of watery eyes. Li Jinnan was indifferent. He stuffed the small box back into her hands and said, "I promised your father that I wouldn't help you. I can't help you. Otherwise, I will be breaking my promise. I can't do this." The little girl pouted and whispered, "If you don't say it, and I don't say it, no one will know." Li Jinnan chuckled and pinched her little face. He said, "How can that be? There are no walls in the world that have ears. As a person, you can't do bad things and you can't lie. Otherwise, it will be very embarrassing if the truth is revealed one day." The little girl didn't quite understand, but she finally understood that Li Jinnan wasn't going to help her. He hugged the doll angrily and dragged the small box with him as he strode forward. Her small body was trembling and full of energy, but her temper was a little big. Yi Yu was amused by her behavior and said, "You really don't plan to help her? Children can't be spoiled. Otherwise she will get used to it." As Li Jinnan spoke, he looked at the two little fellows behind him and said, "Hurry up and catch up. You're both older brothers." Li Jianxian was carrying a small sapphire blue box with no patterns on it. Li Mosen was carrying a golden transformer, which looked a little cool. Yi Yu found it a little strange and asked, "Who bought your little boxes for you?" "Daddy bought them. We picked them ourselves." Li Jianyue turned her head and smiled. "I like little princesses the most." Her little face was all smiles, as if the anger from before had dissipated with the wind. Yi Yu was speechless. This little girl changed too quickly. Li Jinnan chuckled. He pulled her into his arms and said, "Let's go home." "I'm going to." Yi Yu felt a little afraid. "Didn't you say that your parents are coming back today? What's there to be afraid of? Let's meet her together when we're back." As he spoke, he looked at the little ones and asked, "Do you know who she is?" "I know. Auntie Yu Yu." Li Jianyue answered quickly. Li Mosen quickly replied, "Auntie." Chapter 1522. Li Jianyue was immediately elated. She laughed heartily and shouted, "Little uncle is the best." After buying all the gifts, the children were overjoyed. By the time they returned to the old mansion, it was already 3 p.m. The children carried their own luggage and walked forward. When they reached home, they found Li Xiao and Qin Shua's car parked at the entrance. Li Jinnan knew he was in trouble when he saw it. They had really bumped into each other? When Yi Yu saw it, she couldn't help but feel nervous. She asked, "Is this your father's car? He's really back. What should we do?" "What's there to be afraid of?" Li Jinnan didn't seem to care at all. "It's just a meeting. If you don't want to see them, we can leave now." When Li Mosen heard the adults talking, he asked, "Little auntie, don't you want to see my grandparents? Grandpa and Grandma are very nice people." "Yeah, Grandpa and Grandma love us very much. Grandma often cooks sweet soup for us. It's especially sweet. As Li Jianyue spoke, she was almost drooling. She reached out and opened the car door. The little girl quickly got out and said, "Little uncle, open the box." The box she was referring to was the trunk of the car. The children's gifts and luggage were all placed in the trunk. Li Jianyue went to the back and patted the trunk. "Little uncle." The little doll's clear and melodious voice quickly spread inside the house. When Lu Sa heard Li Jianyue's voice, she quickly came out to take a look. She was overjoyed and said, "Little Miss is back. The young masters are back too." Lu Sa said into the car. She jogged out against the scorching sun and said, "The sun is so strong. Why didn't you open an umbrella? What if you get sunburned?" As she spoke, she reached out to help the children carry their luggage. When she looked up, she saw Li Jinan and Yi Yuyu in the car. She said, "Third young master, Miss Yi, sir and madam are back. Would you like to come in and sit for a while?" Li Jinan subconsciously glanced at Yi Yuyu. When he saw her nervous expression, he shook his head and said, "There's no need. We still have things to do. We'll come back when we have time." Lu Sa knew a little about it. When she heard that, she didn't force it. She helped the children carry their luggage. Just as she was about to walk inside, the children stopped her. Li Mosen said, "Sixth grandma, we have to carry it ourselves. Dad said that we have to do our own things, especially this little one." Li Jianxian was a little disgusted and gave the luggage back to Li Jianyue. "Take it yourself." Li Jianyue was a little unhappy, but she still took it. She carried it and skipped inside. She shouted, "Great-grandpa, I'm back." Old Master Li was in a very good mood today. When he heard the voice, he laughed out loud and came out to greet her. "Ursa, you're back. Let me see if you've gained weight." As he spoke, his gaze fell on the car in front of him. The smile in his eyes deepened. "Have you seen your little uncle's girlfriend?" "Yes. Yes, she's very, very beautiful, and she's a very nice person." Li Jianyue's voice was crisp and not soft at all. Little uncle said that he would marry little aunt in the future. Chapter 1523. Li Jianyue was a quick-witted girl. She seemed to have some idea of Captain Li's intentions, but she wasn't quite sure. When she heard that, she quickly nodded her head with a smile and replied, "Got it." Indeed, the strategy of using the children to mislead the public was very effective. Li Jinan and Yi Yuyu had just returned home when they received a call from home. Yi Yuyu looked at the time and felt that it was time to go grocery shopping. When she turned her head, she saw that Li Jinan had actually answered the call. She looked at him and saw that his lips were full of smiles. "Yeah, there's one." On the other end of the line, Qin Shuhua became excited and asked, "Really? What does she look like? What's she like? Where is she from? Has she had any friends before? Is her family clean?" The series of questions left Li Jinan speechless for a moment. He laughed and said, "Mom, you're asking so many questions at once. How am I supposed to answer all of them?" "Let me ask you the most important question," Qin Shuhua said. "Do you really like her? Does she like you? Don't you think that you're the one who's hot-headed, and she's not interested in you? That wouldn't be fun." Qin Shuhua's worries weren't without reason. Li Jinan had been in the military for so many years. Even though he had already retired, his military instincts were still there. It wasn't just his physique. Even the way he spoke and did things exuded the authority of a colonel. How could an ordinary girl stand it? Li Jinan laughed and replied, "How can that be? Look at your son. He's handsome and suave. Who wouldn't like him?" Qin Shuhua was tickled by him and retorted, "Get lost. I'm being serious here." "I'm being serious too. Actually, we've been together for a long time. We just didn't bring it home." Li Jinan chose his words carefully and said, "I was afraid that you would find her too young." When she heard that, Qin Shuhua immediately felt a sense of crisis. She asked, "How old is she? Is she still a minor?" "No, that won't do." "How could that be?" Li Jinan was defeated by her wild imagination and said, "She's 5 years younger than me." Qin Shuhua immediately heaved a sigh of relief. "You scared me. 5 years is not that old. Look at your second brother and sister-in-law. They are 6 years apart. When your grandfather wanted your second brother to marry Qianqian, I thought that the 6-year difference would be a clash of zodiac signs, and they wouldn't be able to get along. Who would have thought that they would be fine? It's fine as long as they are clean and young. Don't worry. It's absolutely clean. Li Jinan guaranteed. Grandpa knows their family. Their family background is clean. Qin Shuhua let out a sigh of relief and whispered, "Is the girl next to you?" "Yes. Hide for a while. Mom wants to talk to you about something else." When Li Jinan heard the mysterious look on Qin Shuhua's face, he knew that what she was about to say was anything but simple. Indeed, the moment he moved to the side, Qin Shuhua said, "I'm not talking about whether her family background is clean or not. I trust you about her family background. What's more important is whether the girl has had any friends before, and whether she's clean or not." When Li Jinan heard that, he felt a little uncomfortable and replied, "Mom, what are you talking about? Naturally, I have to take responsibility for her. That's why I'm with her." Chapter 15:24. I have something to do, and Yu is thin-skinned. She thinks it's too early to meet her parents, so she left without any preparation. Qin Shuhua rebuked, "We'll be family sooner or later. Don't be shy." "All right, Mom, let's talk about it later. I'm going to buy groceries with her." "Io, you're different now that you have a partner. You can even buy groceries and cook?" Qin Shuhua was happy from the bottom of her heart. "Hurry up and go. When you're ready, let me know, and I'll prepare food for you." "All right, goodbye." He turned his head and realized that Yi was sitting on the sofa and looking at him. She looked like she was in a daze. He walked over to her and leaned over to cup her face. He gently sucked on her lips and said, "My mom called me. She asked me to take you home to see her." When Yi heard that, she reached out and wrapped her arms around his waist. She asked, "Didn't you tell your mother about me?" "No." Li Jinan took the opportunity to suppress it. "She'll find out sooner or later. Let her cherish it for a period of time first. Once she's mentally prepared, we'll let her know." Yi felt that something was amiss and asked, "If your mother finds out that you lied to her, will she be angry? How is this cheating? I just didn't say some things." "It's not cheating." Li Jinan pulled her up. "Let's go." Yi accepted his explanation. She stood up lazily and followed him out the door. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun was still strong. Yi had specially brought a parasol with her. After sprinkling some water on it, she walked out the door. Li Jinan naturally took the umbrella and asked, "What would you like to eat?" "I can do anything. What about you?" "Me too." Yi replied, "Can you make a request? I'll see if I'm up to it." Braised eggplant, fish head, tofu soup, boiled prawns, that's all. Didn't you say that you could do anything?" "Yes," Li Jinan said with a smile in his eyes. He looked at her and said, "I'm not picky. Do you eat coriander?" "Oh, I don't want to eat it." "Do you eat carrots?" I won't take it. It's for contraception." She suddenly felt that she shouldn't have asked those questions. She shut her mouth and turned her head away. But when he saw someone selling chives, his eyes immediately lit up. Many people could not stand the strong taste of chives. "Do you eat chives?" Yi asked with a smile. Li Jinan tilted his head and looked her in the eye. He replied, "If necessary, you can eat it." "When necessary? Chives have another name." "Ah, why didn't I know about this? You must know about the aphrodisiac grass." Yi replied, "Pretend I never asked." The smile in Li Jinan's eyes deepened as he replied, "Yi." Yi was just thinking about how she was going to buy the ingredients. When she heard his voice, she turned her head. Before she could react, she saw Li Jinan suddenly bend down and plant a huge kiss on her lips. His voice wasn't soft, and it was very eye-catching. Yi felt the sun above her head burn brighter, and the light became more blinding. In an instant, her face and body began to burn. Yi quickly turned around and walked in front. Her heart was beating like thunder. It was as if everyone was looking at her. Chapter 15:25. It was the 20th day since she arrived at a small town in Jiangnan. Shen Manting had found a job as a tutor in the town and had been working for a week. The student's house was very clean, and it was not far from her rented house, so it was easy to get to and from work. In addition to being a tutor, Shen Manting often helped to plant flowers and do handicrafts in the neighborhood. The neighbors all liked her very much. In the 9th week of pregnancy, her morning sickness became more and more serious. She couldn't eat much every day, and her body became thinner and thinner. As a woman who lived alone and had obvious pregnancy symptoms, many people noticed that she was different. Many people would come to her and ask, "Where's your husband? Where's the child's father? No matter what, you should go home first." It's not easy for a pregnant woman. Every time she heard such words, Shen Manting just smiled and did not answer. It was another tired day. When she returned to her small rented house, Shen Manting took out her computer as usual and opened a document to edit. July 28, sunny. It was another day of tutoring. From an English teacher for 1 or 2 students, she slowly became a tutor for all subjects. Her working hours had also increased from 1 hour to 5 hours. Wang Shui's parents said they would raise my salary by 10 yuan. I was very happy. The income was good. There were no worries, the weather was sunny, and the town was friendly. Everything was fine. Today she vomited more than yesterday. She couldn't eat breakfast and her face was pale. Fortunately, she still had makeup, so she looked more refreshed. The baby was growing bigger and bigger. She didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. On the 20th day of leaving, everything was fine, Manting. It was another day of nightmares. When Shen Luoan woke up, he was sweating profusely. In the dream, Shen Manting looked at him with a sad smile on her face. There was no sorrow or pain, but it was full of sorrow and pain. It was very contradictory, but Shen Luoan could clearly feel the contradictory emotions. It was as if Shen Manting was by his side, looking at him with such an indescribable complexity that penetrated straight into his heart. Shen Luoan got up and was a little upset. He lit a cigarette and leaned against the headboard, exhaling a long puff of smoke. In the darkness, everything was dark except for the orange-red spark in the middle of his long finger, which was faintly flickering. Shen Manting left without any news or explanation. He just disappeared from his world without a trace. Every night, he would press down on that body, the body that he had only tried. It had been almost a month since he had last touched it. Sorrow came from the heart. Even Shen Luo and himself didn't know what he was sad about. Everything came out of the blue, but it caught him off guard. Shen Luoan's eyes stung from the smoke. The loneliness of the night assaulted him layer by layer. In a few days, it would be his and Guan Kui's wedding, but he did not feel the slightest bit of joy as a groom. Everything seemed to have nothing to do with him. He picked up his phone and clicked on the photo his friend had sent him. Yi Yu was sitting opposite a young man. She was eating quietly with her head lowered. However, the expression on his face was very relaxed. The figure that had been blurry for a long time in his mind became clearer and clearer. Really long time no see dash. Chapter 1526. Early in the morning, Yi Yu stretched her back. Her body was so sore that it felt like it was going to collapse. The moment she moved, the bones in her body creaked, and she felt a lot more comfortable. But before he could fully stretch, he was grabbed by a lecherous hand. Li Jinnan nuzzled against her neck. His chin, which was still covered in stubble, tickled her. Yi Yu turned her head away in disgust. She pushed his head away and said, "Don't do that. It's ticklish." Li Jinnan acted as if he hadn't heard her. He continued to tease her fair skin and asked, "Where is it ticklish? Here, or here?" Yi Yu's body was ticklish. She laughed and pushed him away. "Stop it." "Yeah." Li Jinnan hugged her and said, "Kiss me." "No." Yi Yu flipped over and faced her back. Li Jinnan's eyes were mischievous as he kissed her from behind. He worshipped her carefully and caressed her lightly. His movements were extremely gentle. "Then I'll kiss you. Do you miss me?" His lips were on her skin. He slowly moved up and asked, "Where should I kiss you?" Yi Yu's breathing grew heavy. Her body was reacting to his touch. Her body remained stiff and refused to move. She said, "Go away. I want to sleep. It's getting late. You should get up." "No." Yi Yu shut her eyes tightly and refused to get up. Li Jinnan sighed softly and said, "My mom is coming over today." His words were like a heavy bomb that suddenly dropped on Yi Yu's heart. Yi Yu's eyes flew open. She was shocked. She turned around and looked at Li Jinan. Her eyes were filled with disbelief as she asked, "What?" I said, "My mom is coming over today." Yi Yu couldn't sleep anymore. She sat up abruptly and threw the blanket aside to get out of bed. She was naked, but she didn't care. She rushed into the bathroom. Li Jinan laughed and called out, "She's not here yet. Don't be nervous." Yi Yu screamed, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" As she screamed, she looked at her body in the mirror. The bruises and bruises were stacked on top of each other. It looked as if she had been subjected to inhumane torture. How could such a situation be concealed? Heavens, he clearly knew that his mother was coming, but he still sucked so much. He was simply a bastard. When Li Jinan heard that, he seemed to be in a good mood. He replied, "Didn't I tell you now? It's only 6 o'clock. It's still early." Yi Yu was on the verge of a breakdown. She quickly wet a towel with hot water and placed it on her neck where her clothes couldn't easily cover. It was just that it was scalded to the point where it didn't seem to go down by much. She suddenly thought of something and yelled out, "Does your mother know that we're together?" "Of course she knows." Li Jinan yawned nonchalantly. He shifted into a more comfortable position and said, "If she didn't know, she wouldn't have come to see me." In other words, this time his mother mainly came to see him. Yi Yu put the hot towel down. It was a little messy. Chapter 15:27. Li Jinan grunted from the blow. He quickly turned around and pulled her into his arms as he replied, "No." She decided on it at the last minute. "I couldn't do anything about it." As he spoke, his large hands moved to touch her body. When he saw the red mark on her neck, he asked, "Why is it so red?" Yi Yu slapped his hand away. "It's all your fault. You didn't even warn me. Look, look, look." Yi Yu pointed at herself. "How could you not know your limits? That's too much." Li Jinan grabbed her hand and said, "Where? You won't be able to see anything if you put on your clothes. Don't think too much about it. Clothes won't cover it at all." Yi Yu grew even angrier. She punched him twice. Li Jinan carried her and rolled in a circle. He pinned her under his body and said, "I'll get some clothes to cover it up." Yi Yu pushed his face away. "Go away. Get up. When is your mother coming?" I don't know, but she's definitely sleeping right now." Li Jinan put all his weight on her and said, "They don't wake up this early. Why don't you sleep a little longer?" Yi Yu was furious. She reached out and smacked him on the arm. "Weren't you the one who woke me up?" "Oh," Li Jinan chuckled. "I was wrong. Let's sleep a little longer." Yi Yu couldn't sleep. She pushed him away and pressed herself on top of him. "This is the first time I'm meeting your mother. Should I dress up a little?" "There's no need. My mother doesn't like to wear heavy makeup. You can just wear what you usually do." "Then should I dress a little nicer?" "You look good in anything." Yi Yu's lips broke into a smile. She couldn't resist pushing him away. "Be serious." "I'm very serious," Li Jinan boasted shamelessly. He grabbed her hand and placed it on his chest. "Touch my conscience. It's burning hot. It's so real." Yi Yu couldn't resist laughing out loud. "Shameless? Yeah, that's what I want. If it weren't for this face, would I have been able to get a wife?" Li Jinan kissed her on the lips. "Can you still sleep? What do you think? If you can't sleep, why don't we do some morning exercise?" Li Jinan's eyes turned into crescents with a hint of mischief. Yi Yu glared at him and replied, "I'll kill you." With that, she raised her knee and pushed him away. "I'm not coming. What are you thinking about?" Li Jinan looked a little exasperated as he faintly said, "I was thinking of going for a jog with you and buying some breakfast on the way. That way, I won't have to cook." "Your thoughts are so bad." Yi Yu grew even angrier. She stood up and sat to the side as she exclaimed, "You tricked me." "Of course not. You were the one who thought wrongly. How can you blame me?" Li Jinan caught up with her and said, "Get up, get dressed, and go jogging." Yi Yu didn't want to move at all. She said pitifully, "My legs are weak. Let me give you a massage." As he spoke, he placed Yi Yu down and pulled her legs apart. His movements were meticulous. Yi Yu was ticklish. She winced as he rubbed her. She laughed out loud. "Ticklish? It feels good. Li Jinan applied even more force. His hands moved higher and higher. It was getting more and more arousing. Yi Yi shrunk her legs back. Her breathing quickened as she asked, "Why are you?" Li Jinan couldn't bear it any longer. He pounced on her and asked, "What's wrong with me?" "Yeah." Yi Yi narrowed her eyes and hugged him. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Both of them froze. Their movements froze on the spot. Dash. Chapter 1528. This time, it wasn't just Yi Yu who was shocked. Even Li Jinan was shocked. Almost at the same time, both of them straightened up. Yi Yu immediately pushed him away and scrambled to put on her clothes. Li Jinan appeared much calmer. When he saw how flustered Yi Yu was, he said, "Don't be nervous. It might not be my mother." Yi Yu rummaged through her clothes. Without turning her head, she said, "You're still talking? Hurry up and open the door." Only then did Li Jinan slowly climb out of bed. After looking for his clothes, he casually put on a set of home clothes before leisurely walking out. The doorbell was still ringing. Li Jinan slowly walked over and asked, "You're here. Who is it?" Qin Shuhua had been left at the door for quite some time. She was a little annoyed, but when she looked at the time, she suppressed her annoyance and said, "Brat, hurry up and open the door." Li Jinan opened the door with a sleepy look on his face. Especially when she saw Qin Shuhua, she was shocked and said, "Mom, why are you here so early?" Seeing him like this, Qin Shuhua quietly pulled him to the side and asked, "Where's the girl? Is she with you?" "Yeah." Li Jinan yawned. "You're here too early. You told me you were coming today, but you didn't say what time." Qin Shuhua had been prepared for this. Since she was going to live with her son, any advance notice would be in vain. If he wanted to find out the true colors of his future daughter-in-law, he could only conduct a surprise inspection. Qin Shuhua looked inside and said, "Where is he? Where did he go? Are you still asleep?" "That's right. It's so early, and we're not farming or chopping firewood. There's nothing to do even if we wake up. It's better to sleep a little longer." He went to the kitchen to wash his hands and poured a cup of warm water for Qin Shuhua. "Did you come alone?" "Of course. Do you expect your father to come?" Qin Shuhua gave him a look that said, "You're spouting nonsense." She took the water from his hand and asked, "Did the girl know that I was coming?" "I didn't tell her." Li Jinan lied through his teeth. "I was thinking of giving her a surprise, but you came so early and turned it into a shock." When Qin Shuhua heard that, she looked at her son and said, "Why didn't you tell her in advance? That's too much. You're not bad either." Li Jinan pushed her to sit on the sofa. "I haven't brushed my teeth yet. Mom, take a seat. I'll go wash up." "Hurry up." Qin Shuhua smiled. She was delighted. "So, you two are living together. How long have you been living together?" "Not long, I'll tell you later." Good. Qin Shuhua's eyes followed his back. When she saw Li Jinan walk in, she immediately stood up and looked around. The furnishings were very Li Jinan's style. They were very simple. However, it looked like it had added a lot of feminine flair to it. That was something that Li Jinan would never put on. For example, there was a doll on the bookshelf on the wall, a beautiful picture frame on the display cabinet, an oil painting on the wall. Most importantly, the surroundings were very clean. There wasn't a speck of dust. After looking inside, Qin Shuhua realized that Li Jinan wouldn't be coming out anytime soon. She headed back to the kitchen. Whether a woman was virtuous or not, whether she was clean or not, the most important thing was to look at the kitchen. Chapter 1529. When Qin Shuhua entered, she saw the neatly arranged electrical appliances. There was an electric rice cooker, an induction cooker, an electric juicer, and a microwave oven. They all looked new. She looked around and opened the disinfection cabinet. The utensils were neatly stacked. She opened the refrigerator. Fruits, eggs, milk, drinks, snacks. Everything was there. Li Jinan wouldn't have prepared these things. It had to have been prepared by that woman. It seemed like she knew how to live her life. Li Jinan didn't know how to take care of himself, and he wasn't willing to return to the old manner. Having such a woman take care of him seemed like a good idea. Qin Shuhua nodded her head. She was very satisfied. She looked at the floor. It was so clean that not a single strand of hair could be seen. Not bad. Not bad. She moved to the living room, sofa and other places. Everything was neatly arranged. Not bad. That's right. Just this collection and organization alone was enough to put Li Jinnan down. Suddenly there was a commotion inside. Qin Shuhua quickly sat down on the sofa. From the sound of the footsteps, it wasn't Li Jinnan's. It was the light footsteps of a woman. Qin Shuhua turned her head and immediately saw a woman in a white dress. She looked to be in her 20s. Her features were delicate and quiet. She wore a long sleeveless white dress without makeup. Her hair was neither too long nor too short and fell to the side of her ears. She looked clean and refreshing. When Yi Yu saw that Qin Shuhua's face bore some resemblance to Li Jinnan's, she immediately knew who she was. She smiled shyly and greeted, "Hello, Auntie." Qin Shuhua had heard about Yi Yu's situation and various descriptions, but the feeling was nowhere near as intense as seeing her in person. She looked like a very clean and shy girl. Qin Shuhua stood up and smiled at Yi Yu. "Hello, you must be Miss Yi, right?" "Yes, Auntie. You can just call me Yu." Yi Yu walked over. When she saw that Qin Shuhua had a glass of water in front of her, she immediately extended her hand and said, "Please take a seat. Would you like a drink? I bought some drinks yesterday and put them on the shelf." "It's fine. I'm not thirsty." Qin Shuhua smiled and said, "You take a seat too. You take a seat too." Yi Yu's heart raced. She was extremely nervous. This was the first time Yi Yu had experienced the feeling of meeting her parents. She had grown up with Shen Luoan, so naturally, she had met his parents before. Therefore, even when they were talking about marriage, they didn't feel too nervous. However, Li Jinnan's mother was different. Although her relationship with Li Jinnan was passionate and intimate, in Yi Yu's heart, they were still far from the point where they could meet her parents. When she saw Li Jinnan's mother, she felt nervous and awkward. Faced with Qin Shuhua's scrutinizing gaze, Yi Yu felt her skin crawl. "I've long heard from the kids that you're very good-looking and gentle. Now that I look at you, it's indeed true. No wonder our Nan likes you so much." Qin Shuhua's eyes turned into crescents. "Are you 25 this year?" "Yes, Auntie. Not too young. Where did you go to school before?" "Auntie, it's in the capital." "The capital? Northerners?" "You can say that I'm a northerner. I grew up in Cloud Town until I was 10. And then I went to the imperial capital for more than 10 years. Chapter 1530. This was a straightforward question. "Have you talked about it?" Of course they did. And they even got married. If it weren't for Li Jinnan, they might still be married. But could he say that? No. For a moment, Yi was at a loss for words. He smiled sheepishly and said, "Auntie, I have." Qin Shuhua was a little disappointed when she heard that. She nodded and said, "That's true. It's normal for a girl in her 20s to have a friend. But our Nan has never been with another girl. All the kids in our family are like that. They're stubborn. Once they've decided on someone, they'll go all the way. If he's with you, it means that he wants to be with you forever." Yi Yu nodded and replied, "I know what Nan is thinking." Even though she knew about it, she was still a little unsure of what to do. Their development seemed to be a little too fast. His mother came to see her now. Was she going to discuss marriage with her? Yi Yu felt a little mystified. After she replied, she became even more nervous. She instinctively looked inside and prayed that Li Jinnan would come out soon. Seeing her reaction, Qin Shuhua smiled and said, "It's good that you know. Actually, I'm not against young people dating, but if they want to date, they have to be serious about it. Don't you think so?" What was the meaning of this? Afraid that she would be too timing and let down her son? Yi Yu cursed silently in her heart. On the surface, she had no choice but to agree. "You're right, Auntie. Then how did you break up with your last boyfriend?" What kind of questions were these? Yi Yu felt bitter in her heart, but she still thought about it, weighed her words and said, "He has another woman." Qin Shuhua had already decided to interrogate Su Qingseng a long time ago, but now she was a little shaken. Although she sympathized with him, she actually felt a bit of schadenfreude in her heart. She said, That kind of person, it's good to forget him. How can you keep a relationship with such a man? It's better to break it off as soon as possible. Otherwise, if he cheats on you, it'll be even worse. This voice was eloquent, but the more one thought about it, the more terrified they became. Weren't these words indirectly asking about her first night? Yi Yu's hair stood on end. What a deep trap. Fortunately, she was quick-witted. Otherwise, she would have fallen into a trap. Yi Yu chuckled and replied, "Yeah, it's a good thing I ended it early." Qin Shuhua was pleased. Just as she was about to speak again, she saw the look of surprise on Yi Yu's face. With one look, it was obvious that Li Jinnan had arrived. Indeed, when she turned her head to look, she saw Li Jinnan walking over unhurriedly. He naturally sat down beside Yi Yu and asked, "What are you talking about? We women are just chatting. What are you doing here?" Qin Shuhua glared at him. "Did I come at the wrong time?" Li Jinnan chuckled. "Mom, have you had breakfast?" "Not yet. When I came here, Lu Sa hadn't arrived yet. It took me almost half an hour to get here." "I'll do it." Yi Yu immediately volunteered and said, "Auntie, please take a seat. I'll make something simple. It won't take long. It's just that my skills aren't very good. Please forgive me." Regardless of whether his humble words were true or not, he managed to leave a good impression on Qin Shuhua. Qin Shuhua smiled and nodded her head. "All right. Thank you, Yi Yu. Auntie, you're too kind." Yi Yu stood up and quickly turned around. She secretly let out a sigh of relief. How scary. Dash. Chapter 1531. Seeing that Yi Yu had left, Qin Shuhua's eyes were filled with satisfaction. She stood up and walked over to Li Jinnan. After sitting down, she whispered, "How long have you known Yi Yu?" "Quite a while. I've known her since last year." Li Jinnan leaned against the back of the sofa. He looked a little sleepy. Qin Shuhua clapped her hands happily and exclaimed, "You rascal! Why didn't you tell me? It's already been half a year. You've known each other for at least a year, haven't you?" Li Jinnan thought about it and did some calculations before replying. "More or less." "How long have you been together?" Together? If they were officially together, it didn't seem to be that long. Half a month? A month? They had been living together for a month or 2 weeks. If he told Qin Shuhua about this, would she think that Yi Yu was being too casual? Li Jinnan thought about it for a moment before replying. "A few months. I can't remember." "When did you start living together?" "Not too long. About half a month." Qin Shuhua's eyes turned into crescents as she said, "That's great. That's great. My sons have grown up. Every one of them has a partner. That's great." As she spoke, she lowered her voice and asked, "Have you done anything that only a married couple can do?" Li Jinnan suddenly felt a little awkward. He cleared his throat and said, "Mom, aren't you being a little too direct with your words? What's the big deal? You're my son. But judging from the way you're behaving, you probably have, right?" Qin Shuhua's eyes were mischievous as she said, "You're enlightened, young man." "Sigh. Young people these days are so open-minded. When I was with your father, it wasn't like this at all. Now that the two of you are living together, you haven't even brought your parents home to meet them." Sigh. Qin Shuhua looked a little sad as she said, "But that's good. At least you won't have to spend the rest of your life alone. This girl looks pretty good. Is she the one who cleans up the house? Does she hire a helper?" "Nope. She does everything. Recently, she's been the one cooking. She rarely goes out to eat." Li Jinnan looked very happy as he said, "Her cooking is pretty good. It's even better than eating out. Try it later." "All right." Qin Shuhua narrowed her eyes and said, "I heard that you brought this girl to meet your grandfather. Since you brought her back to meet your grandfather, why didn't you bring her home for us to meet as well?" "She's shy." "What's there to be shy about? We're going to meet sooner or later. Look, we're already here. Or could it be that the lady doesn't want to be with you, so she didn't want to see us? How could that be? If you don't want to, why would you live with me? It's good that you know what to do. But, since you really want to be with her, you can take some necessary measures," Qin Shuhua whispered. "Do you know how to take safety measures?" "Mom, is it really appropriate for you to ask such a question?" There's nothing bad about it. Even a woman like me can let go. Why are you a man so shy? Qin Shuhua laughed and said in a low voice, You're not young anymore. Get the girl pregnant first, then bring her home. Then, you'll be responsible for her. After you marry her, she'll be yours. Mom, you've changed. Li Jinan said. Dash. Chapter 1532. To think that he had been so naive as to think that Qin Shuhua was a conservative, traditional woman. He hadn't expected her to be even more shameless than him when she said that. But, it was true that she hadn't taken any precautions recently. That was indeed what he was thinking. He had also kept a close eye on Yu. She hadn't had a chance to go out and buy medicine. When Qin Shuhua heard what Li Jinan said, she rebuked. Mommy is doing this for your own good. You can't go wrong listening to Mommy. The moment she said that, she heard Yu's footsteps coming from inside. When Qin Shuhua heard that, she immediately shut her mouth and fell silent. Yu felt a little strange. She had just heard them chatting. Although she couldn't hear what they were saying, their voices hadn't stopped. Why was it so quiet the moment she arrived? Could it be that he was talking about her? Yu's heart raced, but she didn't say anything. She put down the breakfast in her hands and said, It's time to eat, Auntie. Li Jinan stood up and leaned over to ask, What did you make? As he spoke, he naturally reached his hand out and wrapped it around her waist. Yu immediately reacted and pushed him away. In a low voice she rebuked, Your mother is still here. Go away. Although her voice was soft, Qin Shuhua heard it clearly. She pretended not to see or hear anything, and walked over to take a look at the breakfast she had prepared. It was a simple breakfast. A pot of porridge, a simple side dish divided into 3 portions, a poached egg and sausages. The side dish looked like a side dish, but Qin Shuhua couldn't quite put her finger on it. After washing her hands in the kitchen, Yu followed. After retrieving the bowls and chopsticks, she slowly filled the porridge. She scooped a bowl for each of them, and naturally sat beside Li Jinan. She said, This is a specialty from my hometown. Try it. You probably can't get it in Kingstown. My father pickled it himself, and I processed it a little. The dish was still warm. Qin Shuhua took a bite. Her eyes were filled with amazement. What is this? Yu couldn't quite put her finger on it. She replied, In my hometown it's called Yunhan. I don't know how to translate it in Mandarin. My father made it himself. It's said to be an ancestral skill. Qin Shuhua nodded and said, It is indeed delicious. He scooped a spoonful of porridge and tasted it. The porridge is cooked well, and the eggs look good. Yu was a little embarrassed by the compliment. Her reaction to Qin Shuhua was a little unexpected. She had thought that the person Li Jinan said was difficult to deal with would definitely be difficult to deal with. She had been prepared to be scolded and despised. She hadn't expected that Yu would show no signs of it. This made her heave a sigh of relief. However, he did not dare to relax and said, Thank you, Auntie. If you like it, eat more. I made a lot. Okay, you eat too. Qin Shuhua was all smiles. After she finished eating, she sat down for a while and chatted with Yu about daily life. It was considered a form of familiarization before she reluctantly left. The driver Xiao Chen had been waiting for a long time. When he saw Qin Shuhua come out, he immediately walked over and opened the door. Qin Shuhua sat in the back seat and said, Xiao Chen, help me look into Jinnan's girlfriend. I feel like I've seen her somewhere before. She looks familiar. Dash. Chapter 1533. Xiao Chen hadn't seen Yu. When he heard that, he glanced at her and replied, I'm guessing it's a common face. There are too many people who look alike these days. Whenever a celebrity becomes popular, many people have plastic surgery. It's almost like a knockoff. That girl doesn't look like she's had plastic surgery. She's quite pretty. How does she compare to second young madam? Qin Shuhua muttered to herself for a moment before replying, There's no comparison. Qianqian looks like a child. Her face is small, and her features are small. She looks young too. That girl looks quite good. One look, and you can tell she's from China. Xiao Chen understood. Oh, classic beauty? Not really, but it's pretty close. Her name is Yi Yu. She says she's from Yun Town. Do a check. Sure. Xiao Chun started the car. But that name is too common. There are many people with similar names. Yun Town is quite a big place. Her father's name is Yi Zhenhua, Qin Shuhua replied. All right, leave it to me. Shall we go back to the old manor now? No. Let's go to Mrs. Cheng's for a while. Okay. Yi Yu only breathed a sigh of relief when she saw the car drive away. When she turned her head, she saw Li Jinnan sitting on the sofa. His eyes were closed, and he looked very comfortable. Yi Yu walked over and asked, Say, do you think your mother likes me a lot when she's like that? Yeah, she likes you a lot. Li Jinnan stood up and pressed his forehead against hers. He hugged her and whispered, Do you know what she told me just now? Yi Yu looked up. Their noses were touching as she asked, What is it? She asked me. Li Jinnan lowered his head and planted a kiss on her lips. What's done cannot be undone. Then I'll kidnap you home. Yi Yu chuckled and replied, I didn't expect your mother to be so open-minded. I thought you said she was difficult to deal with, and that she was a traditional old lady. I didn't expect your mother to be so easy to talk to. Yeah, I didn't expect that either. But I think her idea wasn't bad. Wasn't it already cooked? I don't think she'll take me home now. Yi Yu tried to push him away, but he wouldn't budge. Go away. I'll go clean up. What's there to clean? Li Jinnan pressed his lips against the side of her face and said, It's already cooked. Of course I have to eat it. Yi Yu had a bad feeling about this. As expected, Li Jinnan captured her lips with his. With a turn of his body, the two of them fell onto the sofa together. Oh, Yi Yu was a little resistant. It was the middle of the day. It wasn't good. He didn't give her a chance to speak. In a husky voice he asked, Yi Yu, how does it feel to be with me? As he spoke, his hands didn't stop moving. He moved his hands up and down, lifted her skirt, and explored the bottom of her skirt. Yi Yu's breathing grew heavy. She looked up to press his hand down and said, You're too lecherous. Lust? Li Jinnan chuckled. His actions became more forceful as he pulled the fabric off her body. This is called love. His voice was husky and deep. It was so magnetic that it made her shiver. Yi Yu hooked her thighs around his hips. Her eyes were misty. Do you love me? This is love. Li Jinnan pinned her down and pressed her into the depths of the sofa. His arms encircled her. One was masculine, while the other was petite. As he lay on top of her, Li Jinnan felt a sense of pride as a man. Chapter 1534. Marry me. Be the mother of my child. Li Jinnan leaned close to her ear. His hot breath blew beside her ear, and his voice was so serious that she couldn't help but be intoxicated by it. His actions were gentle, and his voice was gentle. Do you want to marry me? Let's get married tomorrow. Shen Luo. An's voice seemed to ring out in her mind. His voice was slow and indifferent. There was no love, no warmth, no longing, and no tenderness when he proposed. Just like that, she got married to the man she had loved for a long time. The childhood sweetheart, whom she had once regarded as her life. There was no wedding gown, no sacred vows. There was only a marriage certificate and a pair of rings that she had casually bought. Other than that, there was nothing between them. Oh right. Now they each had a divorce certificate to prove that their marriage had failed and was unbearable to look back on. I've already married you. What else do you want? Yi Yu's eyes burned, and her heart ached. Li Jinnan's face was right in front of her as she hugged the man in front of her. His deep almond-shaped eyes were gazing deeply at her. Li Jinnan's eyes were unreadable. He reached out and gently stroked the ends of her hair. In a low voice he asked, What's wrong? Yi Yu shook her head. It was only a slight movement, but the tears in her eyes fell. Li Jinnan gently kissed the tears away and said in a low voice, If you're not ready, I'll wait a little longer. Yi Yu shook her head and hugged him even tighter. She asked, Where's the ring? Li Jinnan was stunned. What? You're asking me to marry you, but you don't even have a ring? Aren't you being too stingy? Yi Yu teased him. Her eyes were brimming with tears, but her face was smiling. It was as dazzling as a flower. Li Jinan was stunned for a moment. Then the smile on his face widened. Finally, he laughed out loud and said, "I'll buy it now." Yi Yu hugged him and raised her head to kiss him on the lips. Gently, with salty tears, he gently teased. Li Jinan couldn't help himself. He pressed her down on the sofa and unleashed his crazy love. When the two of them were done, they had already woken up from their afternoon nap. Most of the day had passed. Li Jinan pulled her out of bed. After putting on his own clothes, he hurriedly drove to the nearby mall. This was not the first time he had entered a jewelry store, but it was the first time he had bought a ring. Yi Yu asked, "How about this?" "Yeah, it's nice," Li Jinan replied. "What about this?" "Not bad." "What about this?" "As long as you like it." Yi Yu was a little unhappy. "Why are you being so perfunctory?" Li Jinan looked at her and rubbed his head as he remarked, "The ones you've chosen are all pretty." The lady at the counter secretly laughed, which made Yi Yu even more unhappy. She put all the things she liked in a row together and said, "Pick one." There were 5 of them in the row, and each of them had a particularly beautiful design. Under the light from the counter, the diamonds shone especially brightly. Li Jinan looked around and felt that it was quite nice. He couldn't tell which one was nice and which one wasn't. When he saw that Yi Yu was showing signs of anger, he pretended to pick. He picked the one with the largest diamond and pointed to it. "This one." "Why?" "It's nice. It looks like you." Yi Yu's lips curled up and she said, "Then this one." Dash. Chapter 1535. After paying the bill, the two of them had dinner together. When Li Jinan got into his car, his mind was filled with thoughts. When does the Civil Affairs Bureau close? He looked at the time. It was already 5 p.m. Even if they didn't close, there would be a long line of people. Tomorrow is the weekend. What should I do? Li Jinan was distracted. His mind was a mess. Yi Yu reached out to touch him and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Li Jinan snapped out of his daze and asked, "Do you think we should get engaged first, or just get married?" Yi Yu asked, "Are you thinking about that?" "Yeah. Why don't we get our marriage certificate first?" Li Jinan's eyes turned into crescents. "Since we've been together for quite some time, getting our marriage certificate first is more or less the same. It's not even close." Yi Yu puffed up her cheeks and said, "Your mom doesn't know that I'm divorced yet. What if she finds out and doesn't agree to us being together?" "That's not a problem. We'll get our marriage certificate first. She won't be able to do anything about it then." "How can that be?" "Why not? It's fine. If your mom asks us to get a divorce, will you do it?" "No." "Won't you listen to your mom?" "If I listen to my mom, I won't be able to get a wife. Why should I listen to her?" Yi Yu chuckled when she heard that. "Will your mom die of anger if she hears that?" "No, she won't. If she dies of anger just like that, my second brother's scandal alone is enough to kill her many times over." Li Jinan wasn't soft-hearted when it came to selling out his brother. "Don't worry. It's safe." Yi Yu didn't believe him, but she didn't have a better idea. She looked out into the distance. It was rush hour, and cars were coming and going. After a moment of silence, Yi Yu said, "Shen Luo's wedding is the day after tomorrow. Guan Kui sent me an invitation." Li Jinan raised his eyebrows and laughed. "You're that shameless? You sent an invitation to your ex-wife just like that?" "Yeah. I'm wondering if I should go." The smile on Li Jinan's face faded. He glanced at her sideways and asked, "Do you still have feelings for him?" Yi Yu laughed bitterly and looked out the window. "Would you believe me if I said I didn't?" Li Jinan was silent. He drove steadily, but he didn't feel comfortable. Yes, he wouldn't believe it. Childhood sweetheart, first love, ex-girlfriend, and even ex-husband. Perhaps all these relationships would make her unable to forget them, even though her first night was given to him, even though they were not husband and wife. But it was a fact that they had loved each other for so many years. How could they not feel anything? But since it was Shen Luo's wedding, there was no harm in going. "Go." Li Jinan looked ahead without turning his head. "Go and let them see how you're doing. You'll be able to live a better life without him." "Yes, better." Li Jinan didn't dare to say anything else, But compared to Shen Luoan, at least he was more like a human. Getting along with people was always better than getting along with animals. He continued. While you're at it, you can also pay that sister of yours a visit. Isn't she crazy? Now that she's married, don't tell me she's going crazy as well? Yi Qianqian looked at Yi Qianqian. Yi Yu didn't know, but Guan Kui's condition must have improved a lot for the wedding to be held. Especially when she thought about how blissfully Guan Kui had hugged her wedding gown in the hospital. Yi Yu's heart ached. Chapter 1536. August 3rd. Cloudy light rain. The weather wasn't great. I didn't go to homeschooling and slept at home. I didn't eat much, so I didn't vomit. Today was Shen Luoan's wedding. Everyone on WeChat was congratulating him. It was said that he was marrying his childhood sweetheart. He hasn't divorced Yi Yu for long, and he's already looking for his next wife. Haha, that bastard is even more inhumane than I thought. What's worse is that I want to give birth to his little bastard. When it's grown up, I'll take it home and tell him, look, your little bastard is back. That would be a wonderful scene. Shen Luoan, I wish you a happy wedding and never a happy one. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. The rain poured down. Outside the dark window it was gloomy. The dark clouds seemed to be pressing down on the top of one's head. The lights in the room weren't turned on. An orange-red flame flickered in the room. Young master, it's time. We should leave. Any later and it won't be good. Nanny Lu's urging voice could be heard again. Shen Luo, and looked out the window at the pouring rain. He felt the same way. It was an indescribable pressure. Today was the day of his wedding. But Shen Luo, and didn't feel that it was his wedding day. Such a day was like a noose around his neck. It tightened inch by inch, choking him until he couldn't breathe. Shen Luo put out his cigarette and stood up. He picked up his suit jacket from the chair and walked out step by step. The crisp sound of his leather shoes sounded especially lonely in the quiet room, where only the sound of the heavy rain could be heard. Shen Luo is getting married again. When Yi Yu arrived, there were many familiar faces. Many of them were Shen Luoan's friends. When they saw Yi Yu, they were surprised. Especially when he saw Li Jinnan. His shock was even more obvious. Isn't that the ex-sister-in-law? Why is she here? I think Shen Luoan or the bride called her. After all, the three of them grew up together. Who's the man next to the ex-sister-in-law? That guy looks familiar. Did he appear in a magazine before? Of course. He was last year's richest bachelor of the year. His surname is Li. His name is Li Jinnan. Li Jinnan? People from Kingstown? Li Xiqing's younger brother? Yes, it's him. The discussions around them did not affect the two people who were walking side by side. Li Jinnan looked around and saw a few familiar faces. He nodded at them as a form of greeting before following Yi Yu into the building. The bridesmaids looked very strong. Yi Yu didn't know any of them. Guan Kui had been in the hospital for so long. How could she have gotten to know so many people? The girls were probably hired with money. They were all very pretty, and all of them wore heavy makeup. There was still a gap between them and their circle. Wow, that Li Jinnan sure is brave. He actually dared to come with his sister-in-law. Ha ha ha. I reckon that the news of Li Jinnan picking up used shoes will be exposed by the media tomorrow. TSK, what a heavy taste. Does he know how Yi Yu was violated by Shen Luoan? That's simply not treating them as humans. Sure, don't talk nonsense. You'll die when Luoan comes out. Chapter 1537. As the two main characters in the conversation, they had no idea that they were being discussed in such a manner. Li Jinnan and Yi Yu sat at the side chatting. They didn't seem to notice the commotion around them. A young and slender woman walked over. Her features bore a striking resemblance to Yi Yu's. When Li Jinnan saw her walk over, he recognized her immediately. She must be Yi Yu's mother. He nudged Yi Yu lightly and called out, "Behind you." Yi Yu turned her head and saw Yi Tian immediately. Yi Tian was dressed exquisitely. She wore a black gown that fitted her figure perfectly. She exuded an aura of elegance and nobility. This was the aura that she had developed after living with Guan Yanhong. This was something that she had never possessed while she was with Yi Zhenhua. money, wealth, aura, elegance. When Yi Yu looked at Yi Tian, the first thing that came to her mind was the bright rose in her home in Yun Town. It was fiery red with prickly thorns. But Yi Zhenhua had continued to love it without any hesitation. It had been like this for decades. You're here. Yi Tian smiled gracefully. When Kuei sees you, he'll be very happy. Yi Yu forced a smile and replied, Is that so? That's good. Yi Tian's expression remained impassive. She looked at Li Jinnan and asked, And this is? My fiancé. Yi Yu looked directly at Yi Tian and replied, His name is Li Jinnan. Fiancé? Yi Tian's brows creased together as she asked, When did you get a fiancé? You only divorced Shen Luo and not long ago. And you already have a fiancé? When Yi Yu heard that, she was amused and replied, How long has it been since I divorced Shen Luoan? He even married your other daughter at that time. Why is it that he can get married, but I can't have a fiancé? How is that the same? Yi Tian exclaimed. You're a girl. People will say that you're a loose woman if you behave like this. Oh, realization dawned on Yi Yu's face. She looked at Yi Yu with a faint smile. She had a hint of Li Jinnan's charm as she said, If I'm a fickle woman, then you took your daughter and ran off with another man. Does that count as promiscuous? When Yi Tian heard that, she couldn't contain her anger. Her face turned red with anger. She raised her hand and aimed it at Yi Yu's face. However, before it could fall, it was grabbed by a large hand. Li Jinnan's eyes were cold as he looked at Yi Tian and said, Mrs. Guan, please conduct yourself with dignity. Yi Tian was taken aback. She became even angrier as she glared at Yi Yu. Yi Yu continued to sit there calmly. She raised her head to look at her. Her eyes seemed to contain a hint of provocation. Do you know who I am? I'm Yi Yu's mother. Yi Tian retracted her hand and said angrily, How could I not know anything about marriage? Fiancé? What kind of fiancé is that? I don't agree. Does it count if you say it? Yi Yu stood up. Her eyes were calm. Don't flatter yourself. Didn't you already make your decision a long time ago? Guan Kuei is your daughter, and Guan Yanhong is your husband. You are a family. I'm just an outsider. That's how I've been all these years, hasn't it? Chapter 1538. Yi Yu looked a little surprised. She raised her eyebrows and asked, Have I changed? Why didn't I know? Yi Tian felt a little sad. She looked at Yi Yu and said, Yu, no one blamed you for what happened back then. Kuei is all right now. I'll plead with your father to let you come home. Let's go back to how things used to be, all right? You're still my daughter. Don't go against me anymore. I'm really sad to see you like this. Yi Yu snorted. She felt that Yi Yu's expression was hypocritical to the extreme. Back then, Yi Yu had been the one who had accused her of framing Guan Kuei and crippling her. All these years, she and Guan Yanhong had given so many looks in scorn that they probably didn't even realize it. Now that expression and that look on her face were as if she was really looking at her daughter. However, Yi Yu didn't believe it. She didn't want to, and she didn't dare to. Mommy! A voice rang out. It was Guan Kuei's voice. She sounded overjoyed. Surrounded by many people, she was dressed in a beautiful wedding gown and was the center of attention. Guan Kuei had always been pretty. With her makeup, many people turned to look at her. Her beautiful wedding gown was long and floor-length. Because Guan Kuei's health wasn't good, Guan Yanhong hadn't bothered with her. He had held the wedding at his own hotel. Everything had been handled by the Guan family. The Shen family hadn't done much. Guan Kuei was in excellent condition that day. She was like a little bird as she pushed her wheelchair out. She moved quickly, and her smile was bright and radiant. Mommy, I've been looking for you for a long time. So you're here. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Yu, as if she had just noticed her presence. Yi Yu, you're here too. That's great. I'm so happy that you could come. Thank you. She looked at the man beside her and said, This must be the person Shen Luoan mentioned. Yi Yu's new lover. Guan Kuei was all smiles as she replied, I heard that you were together with Shen Luo, and before you divorced him. Now you're getting married, aren't you? Congratulations. Those words made the people who had been paying attention to Yi Yu and Li Jinan looked at them with a strange expression. He looked down at Guan Kui and said, "Thank you for your concern, Miss Guan. It's all thanks to you. If it weren't for your interference, I wouldn't have been able to win the heart of a beauty." Yi Yu was a little embarrassed. Li Jinan stepped forward at that moment and stood in front of her. Guan Kui's smile froze. Yi Tian stepped in to smooth things over and asked, "Why did you come looking for me? Where's your father?" "Dad is inside waiting for Luoan. When Luoan comes, our wedding can be held as scheduled." Guan Kui smiled blissfully. She looked at Yi Yu and said, "Yu Yu, thank you for coming. I have something to tell you. Can you speak to me in private?" "A few words in private." The relationship between Guan Kui and Yi Yu wasn't that good, was it? Li Jinan felt that something was amiss. He tugged at Yi Yu and asked, "Are you hungry?" Yi Yu could tell what was on Li Jinan's mind. It was highly likely that he didn't want her to be alone with Guan Kui. She reached out to gently push his hand away and replied, "I'm not hungry." With that, she looked at Guan Kui. "What do you want to say? You can say it now." "I want to apologize to you," Guan Kui said with a sincere expression. Guan Kui's face was full of sincerity as she said, "I wanted to speak to you in private to apologize. Also, there's something more important. Dash. Chapter 1539. Something more important, an apology. Something more important. What could it be? Was her apology related to what had happened all those years ago? Or was it related to the snatching away of her love? Or could it be something else? Yi Yu's curiosity was piqued when she heard that. "Yi Yu, can you give me a chance? I really want to apologize to you in person." Guan Kui looked at her with sincerity in her eyes. Yi Tian looked at Yi Yu and said, "Yu Yu, big sister is talking to you. So many years have passed, and you've been in a cold war for a long time. Can't you be more sensible? Don't make mommy and big sister worry about you." Yi Yu laughed when she heard Yi Tian's words and asked, "Have you really treated me as your daughter?" Yi Tian was a little annoyed when she heard that. "How could you say something like that? You hurt mommy's heart." Yi Yu couldn't be bothered with her anymore. She looked at Guan Kui and said, "Fine. I promise to talk to you in private." Guan Kui smiled gratefully and said, "Thank you, Yi Yu. Come with me." As she spoke, Guan Kui steered the wheelchair toward the bridal room that she had always been in. Yi Yu followed her in. Guan Kui waited by the side. She watched Yi Yu enter before closing the door. The closing of the door blocked out all the noise outside. At that moment, only the two of them were left in the room. Yi Yu didn't give her a friendly look and asked, "What do you want to say? Hurry up and finish. I'm leaving." Guan Kui didn't seem to mind and replied, "I have a lot to say. I'm just afraid you won't want to hear it." Her smile widened. The sweet and blissful smile that she had displayed in front of others was nowhere to be seen. At that moment, her smile seemed unfriendly and sinister. It made one feel uncomfortable. Guan Kui's wheelchair stopped behind the door. She looked at Yi Yu and suddenly moved. Her body slowly rose. Yi Yu looked at her in disbelief and asked, "Your leg has recovered?" Guan Kui's smile became even more radiant. "I like that expression on your face. You look like an idiot. Did you really think that I was crippled?" With that, she walked toward Yi Yu. It was obvious that her steps weren't steady. It was obvious that she was straining herself. "Do you really think that I will never recover in this life?" Haha. Guan Kui looked at her. "That's what everyone thinks. Even Shen Luoan thinks. If I'd known, I wouldn't have kept it a secret. That way Shen Luoan wouldn't have run away from the wedding." It was another bombshell. Yi Yu was shocked. Running away from marriage? Don't play dumb. Didn't you already know that he would do such a thing? He never wanted me. You know that. That's why you divorced him so decisively. Do you think I don't know that? As Guan Kui spoke, her eyes widened. Her body trembled slightly as she said, "You know that even after the divorce, he still can't forget you. He still loves you, right?" Guan Kui's expression was indescribably ferocious. Yi Yu instinctively took a step back. She looked at her and said, "I don't know. If this is your so-called apology, then I know it. I don't want to accept it. Get out of my way." Chapter 1540. Yi Yu was caught off guard. With Guan Kui's push, her body immediately fell backward. Her whole body fell backward. Behind her was a large vanity table. The moment she fell, there was a loud clattering sound. The commotion was so loud that Yi Yu was in a daze. When the people outside heard the series of sounds, they finally became alert. Someone knocked on the door. Who's inside? When she heard the voice, Yi Yu opened her eyes. She realized that Guan Kui wasn't in a much better state. Guan Kui was wearing a beautiful and elegant wedding gown. She was lying on the floor, glaring at Yi Yu. His eyes were red as if they were filled with blood. Yi Yu was shocked by her sudden appearance. She instinctively shrank back. This kind of person is so scary. When she saw someone like that, Yi Yu immediately thought of the word crazy. Guan Kui stared at her, and suddenly broke into a smile. That smile was indescribably sinister. It sent shivers down one's spine. She slowly climbed to her feet. Her legs were clearly not used to standing. They trembled as she walked to the other side. She took out a yellow cartoon quilt. On it was the face of a Kelda duck. It was squinting in an unknown direction and smiling eerily. "Help me open it." Guan Kui walked over to Yi Yu and handed the cup to her. "I don't have any strength. I'm thirsty." Yi Yu shrank back and crawled up from the floor with great difficulty. She looked at Guan Kui and didn't dare approach her. This person is crazy. If such a person were to be killed at this moment, she wouldn't be sentenced. She's crazy. Crazy people don't have to bear legal responsibility when they commit crimes. Yi Yu knew that very well. She felt that something was wrong. Someone was shaking the doorknob outside and yelling. "Who's inside? Did something happen?" The door had been locked from the inside. The person outside couldn't open it without the key. Guan Kui didn't seem to notice the commotion behind her. She handed the cup of Kelda duck to Yi Yu and said, "Yu Yu, help me open it." Just like before. Yi Yu looked at Guan Kui. Her heart was in turmoil. In the past, before Guan Kui's accident, Guan Kui would always hand her the drink she bought. She would giggle and say, "Goddess of strength, help me open it." It was only natural. They were all smiles and there was no gap between them. But since when did it start to change? Ever since what happened to Guan Kui? No, even earlier, much earlier. Yi Yu looked at Guan Kui, but she didn't dare take the bottle. She asked, "This bottle is very easy to open. Why do you want me to open it?" "This is the bottle that Luoan gave me." Guan Kui smiled brightly. He said that he wanted me to smile even brighter. Many a time, when I smile, I look just like this duck. It's very cute. Guan Kui's face softened at the mention of Shen Luoan, but she quickly regained her composure. She looked at Yi Yu and said, "But I know that the person he loves in his heart is you, Yi Yu." Yi Yu laughed when she heard that. However, this smile was filled with bitterness. "Guan Kui, you're overthinking things. I've already married you. What else do you want?" If he loved her, he would not have said such words. Chapter 1541. He hated her for pushing Guan Kui off the stage, even though she hadn't done it. But, when everyone was pointing fingers and everyone was certain that it was the truth, no matter what Yi Yu said, how she explained, and how she repented, Shen Luoan believed her without a doubt. Once Shen Luo and made up his mind, it was difficult to change it no matter what. Yi Yu knew that no matter how much she resented and hated him, she was powerless to change anything. That feeling of helplessness persisted for a long time. Even now, Yi Yu still hadn't considered whether Shen Luo and still liked her or loved her. After so many years, the extravagant hopes of the past had vanished into thin air. When Guan Kui heard Yi Yu's words, she stared at her. After a long time she suddenly laughed. "Yi Yu, sometimes I really pity you." "What do you mean?" "All these years Shen Luoan has been by your side. God knows how much I envy you. But you've wasted all that time. If it were me, I would have used those 7 or 8 years to keep him in my clutches." Guan Kui's face was a mixture of regret, relief, and schadenfreude. "It's all because of me that you're in this state. Ha ha ha." Yi Yu's lips pursed tightly. Her emotions were complicated. Yi Yu should have berated Guan Kui for being a mistress, a despicable person, and a shameless person. After playing the fool a few years ago, Guan Kui had planted a thorn in their hearts that was difficult to pull out. It had caused the distance between them to grow further and further apart. Every time she got close, she would be viciously stabbed. All these years, her life had been very difficult. Everything had been caused by Guan Kui. Yet, on such an important occasion, Shen Luoan had escaped. Guan Kui's laughter grew louder and louder. Tears streamed down her face. Yu, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The exquisite makeup on her face was stained by her tears. Her cries grew louder and louder. The pure white wedding dress fell to the ground. The bottle in Guan Kui's hand fell to the ground with a dull thud. Kelda Duck's yellow bottle bounced a few times and rolled to Yu's feet. Guan Kui squatted down and wailed uncontrollably. I'm so jealous of you. I'm so jealous. Guan Kui buried his face between his legs. His muffled voice was filled with sorrow and desolation. The bride, who was supposed to be smiling and happily accepting everyone's blessings, was now crying helplessly in the room. Yi felt her heart wrench. She looked at her with her lips tightly pursed. She lowered her eyes and looked at the cute Kelda Duck water bottle on the ground. Squatting down, he picked up the cup and opened the lid. It was full of water. She took 2 steps forward and squatted down. She reached out her hand and gently said, "Everything will pass." Shen Luoan left today because he was irresponsible. This kind of man can't give you a future, and he's not worthy of your love. Guan Kui buried her head in her hands. Her sobs gradually died down. She raised her head and looked at Yu. Yu held the glass of water in her hand. Her eyes were filled with sympathy as she said, "We all deserve better." She gently pushed the glass of water forward. Her expression was the same as ever. When Guan Kui had lost the dance competition and was crying in her room, Yu had done the same thing. She had comforted her by her side. Chapter 1542. It had a cute design and a funny pair of eyes that seemed to be laughing at her. Guan Kui reached out and took the glass from her. She suddenly smiled and said, "It's still open. Thank you, Yu." Yu didn't know how to react. She instinctively looked at the glass in front of her. "It's still open? What does that mean?" Without waiting for Yu to react, Guan Kui raised the glass and started drinking. She drank the water a little too quickly. Droplets of water flowed down her chin and onto Guan Kui's collarbone. Guan Kui's wedding gown seeped deep into her skin. Yu squatted in front of Guan Kui. She could clearly hear the gurgling sound coming from her throat. Guan Kui gulped water down her throat. The droplets of water from the corners of her eyes kept flowing down. Guan Kui tossed the cup aside and wiped her chin forcefully. She said, "Do you know how much I envy you? Ever since I was young, I've always strived to do my best in everything. My father always hoped that I would be stronger than most people, but I lost my mother when I was young." Yu's eyes widened. As Guan Kui spoke, she stumbled to her feet and said, "It's said that my mother died during childbirth when she was giving birth to me. In this world, I'm Daddy's only family. I'm his only flesh and blood. That's why he has high expectations of me. It's so high that I don't even have time for myself. It's impossible for me to do what I like." Yu looked at her and slowly stood up. She gently said, "You did it, Kui. You're outstanding." "So what? I'm outstanding, but the person I like doesn't like me at all. I grew up with Shen Luoan, but he can get along with you so well. From the moment you appeared, all his attention was on you. Regardless of whether you were in primary or secondary school, everyone knew that you were the best of friends. As for me, I'm nothing more than a genius who relied on hard work to gain everyone's approval." Yu looked at her with a complicated expression. Her heart was filled with sorrow. Guan Kui was actually jealous of me. Before I entered university, I always thought that Shen Luoan and I were the most compatible, but he made such a wish on his birthday. Do you still remember what he wished for? Yu didn't say a word. She remembered, of course she remembered. "I want to be with Yu. I want Yu to be my girlfriend." This birthday wish was said in front of all his friends, and also in front of all their friends. At that time, there was a burst of cheers and jeers. Yu blushed and ran out. He immediately caught up with her, hugged her, and kissed her in the dark. Everything seemed to happen naturally. Without any deliberate announcement, the two of them were together as it should be. However, something like that happened later on. Everyone knows that you two are a match made in heaven. I can only smile and wish you well. I can't show any unhappiness. Guanquei laughed. She had a sickly, deranged look on her face. Heaven knows. I'm so jealous of you that I'm about to go crazy. I really hope that every time the two of you hug each other, you get run over by a car or struck by lightning. Chapter 1543. Fortunately, my chance came. Guanquei smiled as she slowly backed away. You organized an adventure in the wilderness. I knew very well how bad the environment in the mountains was. I knew that you wouldn't be able to take it, so I deliberately brought you up the mountain. Uft. Guanquei's eyes were filled with schadenfreude. I didn't expect it to suddenly rain. Yi had already known about it, but hearing it from Guanquei's own mouth still shocked her. She looked at Guanquei in disbelief and said, You were only 20 years old at that time. I didn't know it would rain, but I did it on purpose. Guanquei laughed wickedly. I purposely walked behind so that Shen Luo and could settle down the others, so that I could drag you down with me. Yi's heart skipped a beat. She looked at Guanquei as though she was a lunatic. You're crazy. Sure. Guanquei placed a finger to her lips and said, Don't say that. I just did something that none of you could imagine. Her eyes turned into crescents as she looked at Yi and said, I didn't expect that after so many years, this incident would still have such an impact. Guanquei's footsteps gradually backed away. Her footsteps were slow, and her legs were trembling. She stood unsteadily. Yi looked at her appearance and felt extremely sorrowful. She looked at her legs, which were covered by the wedding gown, with pity and asked, Is it worth it now? Guanquei's legs, which she had once been most proud of, were now completely crippled. In this lifetime, Guanquei's dance would probably be difficult to pick up again. You set me up, and I'm still standing here, safe and sound. But you lost more than just a pair of legs. Her life, which was supposed to be brilliant and glorious, had been destroyed by a single thought of hers all those years ago. The good thing was that she could still walk. Everything wasn't too bad. Guanquei, what happened in the past is in the past. I don't want to pursue it. Yi looked at her and said, Now that things have come to this, the damage has already been done. I won't feel anything even if you tell me these things now. Yi took a step forward and said, Forget about it. We all deserve a better life. As she spoke, she looked down at Guanquei's legs and said softly, If you do your rehabilitation well, you might be able to stand up again and walk normally. As for Shen Luoin, if he's not suitable, he's not suitable. No matter how much you force him, he won't be able to stay. Guanquei cracked a smile, revealing a row of bright red teeth. When Yi saw it, she was shocked. Blood trickled down the corner of Guanquei's mouth. His eyes, which were already somewhat bloodshot, suddenly became bright red and glistening. Yi's heart skipped a beat. Her hair stood on end. Guanquei laughed out loud and replied, You're still as hypocritical as ever. But I still have to thank you. Some things were destined not to end well from the very beginning. I was already prepared for the worst. Everything that you owe me, it's about time that you return it to me. Yi. As he spoke, he turned around and unlocked the door. Then his body fell heavily to the ground. He fell to the ground, blood spurting out of his mouth and splashing onto the ground. Ah! A scream pierced through the bustling hustle and bustle. Chapter 1544. Guanquei's sudden collapse didn't affect the guests and service staff the most. It affected Yi the most. Yi stood behind the door. The hair on her body stood on end. It was as if all the blood in her body had flowed backward. She stood rooted to the ground, not knowing what to do. The sound of frantic footsteps grew louder. Many people had gathered around her. Guanquei was lying on the ground. Fresh blood flowed from her mouth. Her face was pale and gray. Guan Yanhong had heard the commotion from afar. He sprinted over. After parting the crowd, he saw Guanquei lying on the ground. His daughter, whom he had painstakingly nurtured, was now lying on the ground in such a state, under such a scene. Guan Yanhong's emotions broke down. His eyes were bloodshot. He rushed forward and squatted beside Guan Kui. He helped her up and said, "Kui." Guan Kui's face was pale. Her face was ashen. Her eyes were clouded by darkness. She looked up at Guan Yanhong and said, "Daddy, Yi Yu wants to kill me." Her words were choppy, but they were clear. When Yi Yu heard that, she felt a chill run through her body. From the bottom of her heart to the top of her body, she retorted, "I didn't." It was clear that her words were powerless at a time like this. "Daddy." Before Guan Kui could finish her sentence, she coughed violently and spat out a mouthful of dark purple blood. It splattered on the ground and landed on Guan Yanhong's body. The warmth from it was enough to destroy a father's rationality. Guan Yanhong hugged Guan Kui and burst into tears. He yelled, "Help! Call an ambulance! Save my daughter!" Guan Yanhong cried out. His tears and snot were stuck together. With great difficulty, he picked up his daughter and yelled, "Help me! Help me drive! CEO Guan, this way. My driver is downstairs. We'll leave immediately." A burly man came forward and took Guan Kui. In no time, they ran toward the emergency exit. There was a commotion in the surroundings. More and more people gathered to watch. More and more people were pointing and gossiping. By the time Yi Tian ran over, the scene was already surrounded by a crowd. Panting heavily, he found it hard to believe that Guan Kui was in such a state. Guan Yanhong followed closely behind. When he saw Yi Tian, he was furious. Through gritted teeth he exclaimed, "Your daughter has harmed my daughter once again. Yi Tian, I really regret bringing you home. You're a jinx." As he spoke, he followed closely behind the burly man and ran down with large strides. Guan Yanhong's words caused everyone to look at each other in dismay. Everyone began to point fingers at Yi Tian. Yi Tian stood rooted to the ground panting. She found it hard to believe that Guan Yanhong would say something like that. His heart was in pain. The feelings he had built up over the past dozen years seemed especially thin at this moment. It was as if a light tap would shatter his bones. And the one who was knocking on this thin piece of paper was her daughter. Yi Yi stood rooted to the ground. Her face was as white as a sheet. Her body was cold, and her limbs were weak. When she saw Yi Tian, she felt as if she had found someone to rely on. Tears welled up in her eyes as she stammered, "Mom! Pa!" Chapter 1545. Yi Tian glared at Yi Yu with red eyes. Her breathing quickened as she yelled at Yi Yu. "How could you be so vicious? Kui is already in such a state. What threat does she pose to you? How could you want to kill her like that? You're a jinx." Yi Tian had directed Guan Yanhong's words at Yi Yu. "Jinx, jinx." These three words reverberated in everyone's ears. Yi Yu covered her face. The tears in her eyes rolled down her cheeks as she looked at Yi Tian. Suddenly she smiled. There was sorrow and desolation in her smile. It was a look of despair that made one's heart ache. Looking at Yi Tian, Yi Yu raised her hand and used all the strength in her body to return a vicious slap to Yi Tian. No one had expected such a turn of events. The crowd was in an uproar. Isn't that her mother? Oh my God! Is that mother and daughter fighting each other? Yi Tian had not expected Yi Yu to do such a thing. She looked at her in disbelief. She quickly regained her composure and roared, "Do you know what you've done? I'm your mother." As Yi Tian screamed, she raised her hand and swung it at Yi Yu's face. Before the slap could land, it was blocked by a large hand. The slap landed squarely on a sturdy arm. Li Jinan pushed Yi Tian. Caught off guard, Yi Tian stumbled back a few steps. Yi Yu was on the verge of breaking down. When she saw Li Jinan, she wailed loudly. She threw herself into his embrace and yelled, "I didn't. It wasn't me. I don't know what happened. Believe me, it wasn't me. It had nothing to do with me." Yi Yu's words were laced with helplessness and desolation. Li Jinan's expression was tense. He pulled her into his embrace and said, "I believe you. Don't cry. I'm here. I'm here." Yi Yu's heart calmed down. She looked up and cried even harder. "She asked me to boil the water. At first I didn't dare help her. but she couldn't hold it properly. The water dropped. After she drank it, she started vomiting blood. It wasn't my fault. It was her own fault. This explanation was so baffling that no one around could understand what was going on. Li Jinan didn't quite understand what she was saying, but he didn't say anything. He held her in his arms and said, "Don't be afraid. I'll prove your innocence. Guan Kui is already in such a state. There's only you and her in the room. Now that she's been sent to the hospital by your father, we don't even know if she's dead or alive. How dare you collude with outsiders to beat me up? Yu, I really didn't expect you to be so despicable. You're exactly the same as your dead father." Yi Tian gritted her teeth and roared. By doing so, Yu had already been convicted. But isn't that Yu's mother? Not only did he beat her indiscriminately, but the words he had just uttered were enough to kill Yu. While he was shocked, he was also furious. When she saw Yi Tian raise her hand to slap Yu, the rage she felt was about to burst out of her chest. She wanted nothing more than to strangle her to death in front of everyone. However, he could not. The current situation was too disadvantageous for Yu. He couldn't do anything. Any one of those incidents could be used to frame Yu. He turned his head. His sharp almond-shaped eyes seemed to be coated with frost. Chapter 1546. I've wondered more than once whether you're Guan Kui's biological mother, or Yu's biological mother. Li Jinan looked at her coldly. There was no softness in his expression. Yi Tian stood and looked at Li Jinan confidently as she said, "I'm Yu's mother, but I know what's good and what's bad. I'm on the side of reason, not the side of family." "What is reason? What is family?" Li Jinan's expression darkened. "You abandoned your family for money, and that's family? You indiscriminately slapped your own daughter, and that's reason? What a joke." Yi Tian was incensed by his words and retorted, "What has that got to do with you? Who do you think you are? Yu is my daughter. I can discipline her however I want. Who are you to interfere? Furthermore, she was indeed in the wrong. As a mother, shouldn't I slap her? Don't make it sound so righteous." Yu roared. Her face was red as she glared at Yi Tian. She wiped her face forcefully and said, "You stood at the top of the public's opinion and condemned the person that everyone blamed. They said that Yu pushed Guan Kui off the cliff, and you slapped me and chased me out of the house. You didn't even give me a chance to explain myself and accused me of the crime. Did it ever cross your mind that I was your daughter at that time? You left of your own accord. No one chased you away." Yi Tian said matter-of-factly, "Don't you dare accuse me now. What happened all those years ago was your fault. You harmed Kui's legs. She danced so well back then, but now she can't even stand. The source of this tragedy is Yu. No," Yu screamed. "It wasn't me at all. Guan Kui fell on her own. She wanted to frame me, but she didn't dare to go through the legal process. She could only put herself in a weak position, so that everyone could criticize me on a moral level. I would never do something like that. Yu, you're my daughter. I know you best." Yi Tian looked at Yu and said, "You weren't that kind of person in the past, but you've changed completely." Ha ha ha. Yu was even more enraged. Her face was flushed with anger, but her tears were gone. She yelled, "It's like this every time. You want to be a good stepmother, and a good wife. Don't take me for a fool. You push me out in exchange for a stable position in the Guan family. You're afraid of living a poor life, so you're especially afraid of losing everything." Yi Tian hadn't expected Yu to suddenly say something like that. The truth that she had been hiding all this while had been exposed in an instant. It was as if a bloody scab had been peeled off, and blood flowed freely. More than a decade ago, you abandoned your husband with a child, but Yi Zhenhua has not forgotten you even after so many years. There is still someone waiting for you in Cloud Town. Yi laughed sarcastically. "But from the looks of it, you're a heartless woman. You're not worthy of Yi Zhenhua at all." Yu, Yi Tian roared in anger. She could feel the gazes of the people around her. Her face burned. "I'm your mother." Yi Tian's words caused a commotion in the crowd. The crowd parted. and more than a dozen police officers walked in. The leader looked around and asked, "Who is Yi Yu?" When Yi Yu saw that, her body trembled. Chapter 1547. Yi Yu raised her head slightly, and was caught off guard by a pair of deep dark eyes. However, there was an indescribable coldness in his eyes. The coldness was directed at Yi Tian. Yi Yu sniffed and wrapped her arms around his waist. In a soft, choked voice she said, "I'm innocent. I didn't do it. I believe you, but you still have to go with them. I'll think of a way to get you out and clear your name," Li Jinnan said as he held her in his arms. "It's just a small episode. When you think back on it in the future, you'll find life to be very interesting. So don't be afraid. There's no need to be afraid. An upright person isn't afraid of a crooked shadow." Yi Yu wiped away her tears and nodded her head. The police officer asked again, "Who is Yi Yu?" She is. Yi Tian pointed at Yi Yu and asked, "May I ask who called the police?" When the police officer saw Yi Tian, he only glanced at her briefly, before quickly coming forward to look at Yi Yu. Very quickly, a few police officers came forward and surrounded Yi Yu. A few more people walked into the room, where Guan Kui had just met with a mishap. The leader of the police officers said to Yi Yu, "It was Mr. Guan Yanhong who called the police. At present, we suspect that Miss Yi Yu is trying to kill his daughter, Miss Guan Kui. Furthermore, there is a clear motive for the crime and evidence of the crime. Miss Guan Kui is currently in the emergency room and has lost all signs of life. The situation is very serious. Miss Yi Yu, please come with us." "Guan Kui's life is in danger? That can't be. It's that serious? But Yi Yu doesn't look like that kind of person." "No one would look like that kind of person. Only Yi Yu and Guan Kui were in the room, where Guan Kui met with a mishap. Now that Guan Kui is in such a state, who else could it be if not Yi Yu?" The commotion around them grew louder. Yi Yu felt the blood coursing through her veins as she said, "It wasn't me. I didn't." There was an uproar. "There were only the two of you in the room. If it wasn't you, could it have been her? It's her. It's her," Yi Yu shouted. When she said that, everyone around her scoffed. "Today is Guan Kui's wedding day. Do you think she'll commit suicide and blame it on you? That's right. She's a bride today, the happiest moment of her life. You must be jealous of her, so you hurt her." No. If it's not me, you can investigate. The innocent will be innocent, and the turbid will be turbid. If I don't have it, then I don't." Yi Yu was on the verge of breaking down. Her voice was laced with grievance. She tried to explain herself hysterically, but she didn't gain the slightest bit of trust. The surrounding people looked at her with deep disbelief. This scene was the same as 7 or 8 years ago. She had explained it to everyone, but everyone had different expressions. He looked at her, as if he were looking at a criminal. His gaze made Yi Yu feel pain and despair. The feeling from 7 or 8 years ago returned to her. She felt a chill run down her spine, and her body trembled. Chapter 1548. With that one sentence, the surrounding people all quietened down at the same time. They looked around and looked at each other in dismay. They had indeed seen the groom in America. As one of the main characters, Shun Luoan hadn't been there. Even when the bride had been sent to the hospital for emergency treatment, he hadn't shown up. Something was wrong. It's hard to say whether or not it was a suicide. We still need to investigate further. But Missy needs to come with us now, the leader of the police officers said. Another police officer stepped forward to handcuff Yi Yu and said, "If Miss Guan's life can be saved, everything else can be discussed. Please go. Seal off the scene and disperse the crowd." "Yes, sir." Yi Yu's hands were cuffed with cold handcuffs. The unfamiliar feeling went straight to the bottom of her heart. She turned her head helplessly to look at Li Jinnan. Li Jinnan looked back at her and nodded his head silently. He mouthed, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." Yi Yu turned her head back. Her heart was racing, and her body was still trembling. How could I not be afraid? Guan Kui had drunk that glass of water and vomited blood. Had she planned to commit suicide all along so that she could frame me? Or perhaps Guan Kui was just trying to hurt herself, so that everyone would condemn me, and that I would no longer have a place in this world. If the investigation was true, the crime would be established. If nothing happened to Guan Kui, she would be guilty of intentional injury, intentional murder, and attempted murder. If something happened to Guan Kui, it would be considered intentional murder. She would be sentenced to life imprisonment or even death. At that thought, Yi bit down on her lip and sobbed softly. It wasn't me. I didn't want to harm her. It was her own fault. Don't worry. We're still investigating. If you're innocent, we'll definitely clear your name. Yes, the innocent will be innocent, and the guilty will be innocent. In any case, she was now a suspect. Since the police had been mobilized, they would definitely clear her name. Definitely. Yi was taken into the police car. Li Jinan followed closely behind. When they arrived at the police station, Yi was taken into custody. All her belongings were confiscated. Li Jinan couldn't even see her face. His heart was heavy. This was the capital. He had been retired for several years. At present, he had no say in this situation. He picked up his phone and called Li Beixing. The call was quickly answered. Hello. Does my brother miss me? Li Beixing seemed to be in a good mood. Li Jinan gave him a simple explanation of the situation, and Li Beixing's carefree attitude disappeared completely. Are you sure she's innocent? I'm very sure. She wouldn't have the heart to do something like that. At the same time, Li Jinan felt a little helpless. At the same time, he blamed himself. It's my fault. I thought that since it's her wedding day, she would definitely stop. Everyone knew that Guan Kui and Xin Luo and had gone through a lot to get together. At the very least, they couldn't ruin their own wedding, could they? It was obvious that he had underestimated Guan Kui and overestimated Yi Yu. Chapter 1549. Thank you, big brother. Li Jinan rubbed his eyes and sighed. Li Beixing sensed Li Jinan's emotions and consoled him. Don't worry. As long as she didn't do such a thing, nothing will happen to her. You were right not to be impulsive. This matter can be big, but it can also be small. First, you have to be calm before you can act. Yeah, Li Jinan understood that, but he still couldn't get rid of the pain in his heart. How long have you been with this girl? Li Beixing's tone was solemn as he asked. Everything was fine. Why would that person target her? I don't want to say anything, but what if? And I mean what if that girl isn't innocent? What do you plan to do? That's impossible. Li Jinan was very certain. She couldn't have done such a thing. The girl who is being sent for emergency treatment is her stepsister. She has a serious mental illness. My girlfriend is her new husband's ex-wife. There was a conflict between them before. Why? Li Beixing exclaimed. Ex-wife? Your girlfriend has been married before? Yeah, a marriage of convenience. Li Jinan's head was aching. He leaned back in the car seat and narrowed his eyes. It's the kind of marriage of convenience where nothing can be done. D***MN. You guys are quite fashionable. How are you going to tell your family about this? Li Beixing felt like he was on the verge of breaking down. If you tell our mom that your girlfriend was married, divorced, and is now suspected of murder and locked up in the capital's prison, what do you think her reaction will be? Li Jinnan's throbbing head was already throbbing with pain. He felt even more uncomfortable. I don't know. Now is not the time to be thinking about such things. The most important thing is to think of a way to get Yi Yu out and clear her name. Big brother, can you do that? Li Beixing frowned. After a long moment he asked, Are you sure she wouldn't do such a thing? She wouldn't. Good. Now you have to find a lawyer. I remember that second brother's wife's parents are in the capital. The Rong family's status in the capital is unquestionable. You can get your second sister-in-law to help you. I've heard of the Guan family that you mentioned. This Guan Yanhong is not to be trifled with. He's a ruthless man. Furthermore, he only has one daughter. I'm afraid he won't let this matter rest. That's right. Using Su Qianxi's connections, Li Jinnan had never thought about that. However, judging from the current situation, most of his Li Beixing's and Li Xiqing's connections were in Kingstown. Guan Yanhong's status in the capital was not low. If they had to deal with it on their own, it would be troublesome. However, with the addition of a general from the capital, things would be much simpler. Li Jinnan thought about it for a moment before replying. I got it. I'm hanging up. Li Beixing. Don't think too much about it. Since she's your girlfriend, of course we have to save her. I'm just afraid that you'll get yourself into trouble, and then it'll be hard to explain to your family. Grandpa's health isn't good, so don't spread this news back home. Yi Li Su, he knows that you. Yi. Su Su Yi Li Jikno Li. Chapter 1550. That's right. It would have been fine if it was just a grandfather. More importantly, there was more to it than that. Li Jinnan's headache intensified. He replied, got it. I'm hanging up. He hung up the phone and called Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi seemed to be busy. When she heard Li Jinnan's request, she agreed without hesitation. Li Jinnan drove back to the hotel where the wedding had just taken place. The venue was cordoned off, and the police were coming and going. The crowd had yet to disperse. When they saw Li Jinnan arrive, many people started whispering and pointing at him. That's the boyfriend of the culprit just now. He's quite handsome. Why would he fall for that kind of guy? I'm better than her. Sigh. He's young and promising, but he's blind. Li Jinnan acted as if he hadn't heard the words of the people around him. He walked up to a police officer and asked, what's the situation now? The police officer looked up. When he saw that it was Yi Yu's boyfriend, his attitude darkened. He replied, other than the makeup artist's fingerprints, there are also Guan Kui's and Yi Yu's fingerprints. What do you mean? Li Jinnan had a bad feeling about this. In other words, other than the makeup artist and the other necessary personnel, Madame Yi Yu entered the room more often. When he saw the expression on Li Jinnan's face, the police officer felt a little sympathetic. He took out the photo of the evidence and said, this young lady isn't simple. There are very few fingerprints in there. Even the door doesn't have her fingerprints on it. However, she still managed to leave her mark on the most crucial item. As she spoke, she raised her head and took out a Polaroid photo. She continued, this cup is filled with lethal poison. It takes effect very quickly. Half of the water has been drunk and spilled on the ground. However, the amount of poison that Miss Guan Kui drank is enough to be fatal. Although she has been sent to the hospital for emergency treatment, from the looks of it, she is still in critical condition. You are Yi Yu's boyfriend, aren't you? You'll have to come back with us to give a statement. Li Jinnan's face darkened. In a low voice he said, T. If she had such a mind, she wouldn't have lived for so long. What a bunch of fools. They don't even know that they're being played by a woman. Their brains must have been kicked by a donkey. Hearing that, the policeman lost his attitude and said, I think you're the one who's being fooled by a woman. Missy has a criminal record. 7 years ago, she pushed her stepsister off the cliff when she just came of age. Although the Guan family won't hold her responsible, it's still a fact even if you ignore it. Li Jinnan was filled with rage when he heard that. He laughed coldly and said, Can't you think about why she didn't harm anyone else but Guan Kui? If she was really that kind of person, why had she been so well behaved all these years? Why hadn't anyone been harmed by her? Why had Guan Kui gotten her into trouble the moment she returned? Can't Guan Kui fall off the cliff and frame Yi Yu? Can't Guan Kui drink the poison and run out to put on a show? Li Jinnan's tone wasn't very pleasant. The police officer was infuriated and retorted, Who in their right mind would do such a thing? Ha! Don't forget that this woman is a lunatic. When he said that, the police officer was rendered speechless. Chapter 1551. When Li Jinnan was brought to the police station, he was asked a few questions about Yi Yu's daily life. How could Li Jinnan say anything else? He insisted that she was a good citizen, and that she was extremely kind. After a round of questioning, Li Jinnan's attitude improved a lot. He was able to converse with the police officers in the station. In order to build a good relationship with them, Li Jinnan even brought up the names of Li Xiqing, Li Beixing, Li Sun, and Li Xiao. When the people in the station heard that Li Jinnan's background was so impressive, they all felt much better. They felt so much better that when he asked to see Yu Yu, they only looked at him for a while before letting him in. As he sat outside the visitation room, Li Jinnan saw Yu Yu being brought in from afar. Her hands were handcuffed. When she walked, the handcuffs clanked against each other. Yu Yu was still dressed in the same clothes. She looked very cool, but all the jewelry on her body had been removed. Her hair was a mess, and the originally exquisite makeup on her face had been ruined. She looked very pathetic. Her eyes were red and swollen. When she saw Li Jinnan, she bit her lip and quickly walked over. Her eyes were red as she looked at Li Jinnan. It was as if a warm current had been injected into the place where she had been terrified and lost. Yu Yu's originally uneasy feelings were instantly soothed. As he watched Yu Yu sit down, Li Jinnan said, "Tell me what happened. Don't leave out a single detail." Yu Yu's eyes were a little hot. She looked at Li Jinnan and repeated what she had just said to the police officers. Li Jinnan's brows furrowed together. He thought for a moment before asking, "You said that she asked you to boil the water, and you opened it for her?" Yu Yu nodded her head and replied, "At first, I didn't dare say it. I was afraid that she would frame me. But she cried. She cried so miserably. She talked about our past. We really weren't like this in the past. She wasn't like this in the past either." Yu Yu's voice choked up. She lowered her head and said, "I felt a little sad when I saw her cry. Shen Luoan is a jerk. She was just bewitched by him. At the end of the day, she was just a pitiful person. She was abandoned and left alone. It was very pitiful. So you gave it to her." Li Jinnan took a deep breath, gritted his teeth and growled, "I really want to open your head and see if it's filled with water or tofu." After being yelled at, Yu Yu pursed her lips and didn't dare say another word. She looked up and saw Li Jinnan's livid face. He lowered his head in silence. "She tricked you into drinking water because she wanted to leave your fingerprints, right?" Yu Yu didn't dare to look up at him. She nodded her head. She felt guilty and restless. What did she say after drinking the water? Yu Yu looked up and thought for a moment before replying. She said that I owed her so many years of debt. It's time for me to pay it back. What do you owe her? Li Jinnan couldn't understand. What kind of hatred did she have to take revenge in this way? Furthermore, Guan Kui's extreme method had not only hurt Yu Yu, but it had also caused irreparable harm to herself. For example, when he fell off the cliff back then or this time. Chapter 1552. Yu Yu pursed her lips. This was a question that had been on her mind for many years. What did she owe her? Perhaps too much. Ever since she had joined the Guan family, Guan Yanhong had always taken good care of her. She could tell that Guan Kui wasn't too happy when Guan Yanhong was treating her well. However, she still maintained a smile on her face and spoke as if nothing had happened. She might have stolen away some of her father's love. Ever since she had known Shen Luoan, he had always paid more attention to her. At that time, Yu Yu could sense that Guan Kui might have liked Shen Luoan. She might have stolen Shen Luoan. At the same time, Guan Kui had stolen the only family she had. Ever since they had joined the Guan family, Yi Tian had completely transformed from Yi Yu's mother to Guan Kui's mother. At first, she had harbored some fantasies about Yi Tian. After those slaps and those words, Yi Yu had completely given up on Yi Tian. Perhaps she had never treated Yi Tian as her own daughter. Perhaps Yi Tian only felt possessive and manipulative toward Yi Yu. Once Yi Yu left Yi Yu's control, things would change. Yi Yu didn't speak for a long time. Li Jinnan was starting to get impatient. He said, "Don't tell me you don't know either." Yi Yu remained silent. After a long time, she finally said, "I might have stolen the person she liked." She liked Shen Luoan very much. She liked him very much. She liked him so much that she was willing to throw herself off the cliff and tell everyone that she was the one who had pushed her off Shen Luoan's side. She liked Yi Yu so much that, in order to consign Yi Yu to eternal damnation, she would drink poison and tell everyone that she was the one who had tried to kill her. Yi Yu could only passively choose to be framed. She was caught off guard by all sorts of attacks. Yi Yu didn't even have a chance to retaliate. Similarly, no one had given her the chance to do so. Even her biological mother was one of them. Li Jinnan took a deep breath and asked, "All because of AB*th? You women are crazy." "That's right. Women are like that. For a man they can do anything." Yi Yu's lips twitched. "Back then, I was equally crazy to marry Shen Luoan." Li Jinnan's face darkened. "Are you still thinking about him?" Yi Yu shook her head. "No. After we divorced, our relationship was completely severed. At this moment, who knows where this guy has gone? He didn't appear at the wedding, and no one has seen him. He left a letter in the room, and didn't even want the bride. How promising." Li Jinnan laughed sarcastically. "Why didn't you say so earlier? Why did you have to wait until the last moment? Who are you putting on a show for? He really ran away from the wedding." Yi Yu looked at him in realization. Is it possible that he went to look for Shen Manting? Yi Yu was right. Shen Luo and had indeed gone to see Shen Manting. However, Wuxia was so big that he had no idea where to start. According to Shen Manting's registration information, she had gone to Suzhou. However, Suzhou was so big that it was not easy to find a person. When Shen Luo walked out of the airport, he felt that he was a little silly and pitiful. The surroundings were unfamiliar. There was not a single face that resembled Shen Manting's. Chapter 1553. Shen Luo stood in the empty airport lobby for a while, at a loss as to what to do. He didn't know how long he stood there before an airport employee walked over with a polite smile. "Hello, sir. Welcome to Suzhou. How may I help you?" Shen Luo snapped out of his daze and looked at the employee. He shook his head gently and asked, "How do I get to the taxi lane?" "Go straight. You'll see it when you turn left at the second intersection." Shen Luo nodded his head blankly and said, "Thank you." He didn't have any luggage or backpack. Shen Luo was dressed in a bridegroom's suit. His hair was styled in a handsome and trendy style, but the expression on his face was so blank that no one could see the joy and happiness of a newlywed. The employee stared at his back for a long time before walking away. He turned to his colleague and said, "I think I met a bridegroom just now. He was handsome, but he looked very sad." Shen Luo didn't realize that he was being whispered about. After he walked out, he gave the name of a random hotel and was taken to the place. After checking into the room, Shen Luo felt exhausted. It wasn't far from the capital to Jiangnan. However, his heart felt as though it had already crossed thousands of mountains and rivers. He was indescribably tired. After lying down, he didn't feel the slightest bit sleepy. Shen Luo looked at the snow-white ceiling. His mind was a mess. He shut his eyes tightly. He could clearly feel his heart beating heavily. Every beat was forceful. Every beat made him feel as though he was still alive. Was it really appropriate for such a person to be alive? If he returned to the capital, Guan Yanhong would definitely break his legs. He had already mentally prepared himself. After escaping, he realized that he was much more relaxed. He didn't love Guan Kui. It had been 6 hours since Guan Kui had been sent to the emergency room. Her stomach couldn't be any cleaner, but Guan Kui's vital signs still hadn't stabilized. This young and beautiful lady was once again lying in the emergency room. She was the subject of intensive care by all the doctors. Guan Yanhong cried out several times outside the emergency room. He couldn't calm down for a long time. He punched the wall, banged his head and destroyed himself. The secretaries and relatives around her didn't know how to comfort her. With his only daughter in the emergency room, his life and death uncertain, Guan Yanhong was undoubtedly suffering the most. At this time, no matter how much anyone said, it would be useless. Unless Guan Kui could come back to life. After more than 6 hours, the door to the emergency room was finally opened. Guan Yanhong's eyes were bloodshot. He rushed forward and grabbed the doctor. "Doctor, how is my daughter?" The doctor didn't even have time to take off his mask. He was obviously shocked when he was grabbed. The doctor took off his mask and said, "We've tried our best. What do you mean? Guan Yanhong roared in disbelief. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by trying your best? My daughter was just fine a moment ago. How could you not save her? The doctor was startled by his roar and said, I haven't finished speaking. Don't get agitated. Guan Yanhong was pulled back. Only then did the doctor dare to speak louder. The patient is still unconscious, and his condition isn't looking good. If he can wake up within 48 hours, he'll be safe. Chapter 1554. Guan Yanhong wasn't any calmer than before. He rushed forward and grabbed the doctor by the collar. I don't care what you do. My daughter can't die. Do you hear me? She can't die. Guan Yanhong's emotions were clearly unstable. The doctors and nurses in the room rushed forward and pulled his hand away. The people behind him immediately pulled him down. The doctor heaved a sigh of relief when he was pulled down, but he still said, I can't guarantee that. It all depends on the patient's will to live and the state of her recovery. If you continue arguing like this, the patient won't be able to rest well. Who knows? Guan Yanhong couldn't take it anymore. His only daughter, who he had always relied on, had been reduced to this state in an instant. To Guan Yanhong, this was like a bolt from the blue. What was supposed to be a happy wedding had been ruined by *tch. While Guan Yanhong was filled with remorse and pain, he also felt a deep sense of hatred. Yu. At a time like this, the most important thing was to ensure his daughter's safety. I want to go in and see my daughter. It wasn't a plea or a statement. It was an order. His tone made the doctors feel displeased. The attending doctor said, the patient needs silence. The most important thing now is to ensure that she gets absolute rest. Guan Yanhong looked at the attending doctor and growled, I'm just going in to take a look. It won't be noisy. I'll be alone. His tone was harsh, and it made everyone feel even more dissatisfied and angry. But he was Guan Kui's father. Hearing that, the doctor finally nodded his head. Guan Yanhong rushed in immediately. He looked at the ashen-faced Guan Kui on the bed. Her heartbeat was steady, but it was obvious that she wasn't in a good state. Guan Yanhong's heart ached so much that he couldn't speak. His heart was filled with hatred for Yu. 7 years ago. And now, she had laid her hands on his daughter twice in a row. Did she really think he was a decoration? The doctor walked in and waved at Guan Yanhong. Come out for a moment. Guan Yanhong gazed longingly at his daughter a few more times before walking out of the room. The doctor closed the door and said softly, the patient's condition isn't very good. Her will to live isn't very strong. My suggestion is that you find someone she cares about, or someone who can awaken her will to live. Your daughter is supposed to be getting married today, right? You can ask her husband, or the person who framed her today to come along. The doctor said very seriously, even if it's hatred, normal people will want to take revenge. Moreover, with your daughter's current condition, she needs external stimulation the most at this time. The thought of Yu filled Guan Yanhong's heart with hatred, but the doctor's words had mentioned another person. Shen Luoan. Little Su. Yes. Hurry up and find Shen Luoan. Xiao Su hesitated and said, Mr. Shen doesn't seem to be in the capital anymore. When Guan Yanhong heard that, he flew into a rage and retorted, how is that possible? Today is his wedding day with Kei Yi. How could he not be in the capital? Furthermore, if he's not in the hotel, he's on his way here. Call him and ask him to come over immediately. Chapter 1555. It was a small envelope with the name Shen Luoan written on it. When he saw it, Guan Yanhong had a bad feeling about it. He reached out, wanting to take the envelope, but in the next second, his hand froze in midair. Looking at Xiao Su, Guan Yanhong's expression darkened. He asked, what's written inside? Xiao Su shook her head. I don't know. I didn't open it, but I think it was a wedding day. Leaving an envelope without seeing the person was obvious that it couldn't be anything good. Guan Yanhong's face was ashen. He took the envelope and tore it open. Inside was a notebook. There was only one line of words on it, making the paper look especially empty. I'm sorry. I don't want to let you down. Those few words were enough to explain Shen Luo'an's intentions. Guan Yanhong was furious and roared, "What the hell is this? Shen Luo'an!" Xiao Su was startled by Guan Yanhong's outburst. She pursed her lips and said, "I did a quick check." Mr. Shen chased the driver out of the wedding car and drove it to the airport. Guan Yanhong clenched his fist. The paper in his hand crumpled into a ball. "Find him for me." "Yes. Also get a lawyer. I want to sue Yu." Guan Yanhong's eyes were bloodshot. "I want her to die in prison." Xiao Su lowered her head and didn't dare to speak. She quickly agreed and left. The situation didn't look optimistic. Li Jinan had been busy for the past 2 days. The next day he contacted Rong Haiyue. Rong Haiyue belonged to the military and couldn't directly intervene in the matter. It was a little troublesome to deal with. After using all sorts of connections, he finally contacted Rong Haiyue's nephew, who was also Su Qianxi's cousin, Rong Rue. This wasn't the first time Li Jinan had heard of Rong Rue. As the husband of Li Xiqing's super assistant, and the incident with Tang Minjing, Rong Rue's name was well known. Although Rong Rue wasn't in the capital often, he was very practical and sociable. He also had many friends. Through his network of contacts, Li Jinan got in touch with a well-known lawyer in the capital, who was known to have never lost a case. By the time he understood the situation and saw Yi Yu again, 2 days had passed. Everyone knows that Miss Yi and Miss Guan are inside. No one can prove that Miss Guan drank the poison, and Miss Yi is innocent. The most troublesome thing is that Miss Yi helped her open the bottle. The most crucial point of this matter is on it. Miss Yi's fingerprints are clearly left on it. In addition to your previous grievances, the lawyer's words were very serious. Yi Yu sat across from them. She was very nervous, especially after hearing the lawyer's words. His heart became even colder. More importantly, Guan Yanhong's status in the capital is not low. The higher-ups will likely give him some face. Recently, I've heard that he's dealing with this matter. He's even said that he's going to sentence you to death. Yi Yu trembled slightly and looked at Li Jinan helplessly. Li Jinan stood across from her. There was a layer of glass between them. He couldn't touch her at all. He could only reach out to look at her through the glass and whisper, "Don't be afraid. Mr. Lawyer isn't done yet." Chapter 1556. The breakthrough point was Guan Kui's mental illness. If a psychopath acted up, he would really do anything. Guan Kui's current situation was not optimistic. No one could guarantee that she was still thinking like a normal person. Therefore, the biggest breakthrough point was Guan Kui. "I just received the latest news. Guan Kui is still in the ICU. Her life is in danger. If she wakes up, she will be safe and sound. Everything will turn for the better. If she doesn't wake up, then there will be no evidence," Li Jinan said with a solemn expression. "Therefore, we can only pray that she wakes up soon." The Guan family's status is not low. Guan Yanhong frequently enters the political districts in the capital. Furthermore, the capital is their headquarters. There are many things that are difficult to manipulate in the dark here. Lawyer Ye's expression was solemn as he continued. "Rong Rue has been a good friend of mine for many years. I will do my best. However, based on the current situation, Guan Yanhong is not weak at all. He has dominated the real estate industry for so many years and has accumulated quite a bit of power. His only weakness is probably his daughter." When he heard Lawyer Ye's words, Li Jinan suddenly laughed. "Are you saying that the Li family is no match for the Guan family? A mighty dragon cannot suppress a local snake. Third young master, this is the capital." Li Jinan's expression did not look too good. What Lawyer Yi had said made sense. He took a deep breath and asked, "What do we do now?" "We wait and see." CIN hospital in the capital. In the ICU, more than a dozen doctors and nurses rushed in. The sound of the heartbeat machine rang out, and a series of urgent alarms could be heard. The golden 48 hours that the doctor had mentioned had already passed. Just a few minutes ago, Guan Kui's heartbeat monitor had sounded the alarm. Everyone was on standby and ready to go. Guan Yanhong stood at the door. His eyes were bloodshot. He covered his mouth and paced back and forth. The heartbeat monitor inside gradually stopped. Guan Yanhong raised his head and looked inside. Tears quickly flowed from his eyes. He squatted down on the floor and wailed bitterly. A middle-aged man's wails attracted the attention of many people. Guan Yanhong did not seem to notice that he had lost his composure. His cries were loud and sorrowful. His secretary, Xiao Su, was at a loss as to how to console him. She stood to the side and looked at Guan Yanhong's tall and frail back. She was at a loss as to what to do and said, "The doctor isn't out yet. Don't worry too early." The door of the operating theater opened. Inside, several doctors and nurses pushed out a bed. On it was a human figure who was covered. When Xiao Su saw this scene, he secretly clicked his tongue. His heart ached, and he almost cried again. The doctor took off his mask, his face full of regret and self-blame. He bowed deeply and said, "I'm sorry, we tried our best." Guan Yanhong collapsed to the ground. His sobs shook the heavens as he helped Xiao Su to her feet. Xiao Su led Guan Yanhong forward. When they lifted the white cloth, they saw Guan Kui's ashen face. His daughter, who was originally full of happiness and was about to be married today, was poisoned to death just like that. Guan Yanhong's sobs intensified. Suddenly he raised his head. His eyelids fluttered, and the strong body of a father fell backward without any warning. Chapter 1557. With the news of Guan Kui's death, everything seemed to be at an impasse. After a few days of silence, Guan Yanhong finally brought the matter up again and took Yi Yu to court. The evidence at the scene and witnesses were present. The most crucial piece of evidence was Yi Yu's fingerprints. Lawyer Yi also pointed out that the cup contained a very rare chemical poison. It was considered a chemical contraband and was very rare. It was very difficult for people who were not familiar with chemical medicine to come into contact with such a drug. Lawyer Yi raised a few points of suspicion. 1. Yi Yu didn't have the time to buy such things. Even if she did, she wouldn't have been able to. 2. Yi Yu was currently living in Kingstown with Li Jinnan. Her life was very comfortable, and she enjoyed a good life. Why would she kill a stepsister with whom she had a grudge? There was no motive for the crime. 3. Yi Yu was called into the room by Guan Kui. Furthermore, Guan Kui was mentally ill. It was highly possible that Guan Kui had orchestrated and acted out all by herself in order to frame Yi Yu. 4. On the day of Guan Kui's wedding, the groom didn't show up. Furthermore, the groom was a widely recognized genius in medicine. He had come into direct contact with the drug. In other words, Shen Luoan was the biggest suspect. In court, after hearing Lawyer Ye's words, the judges discussed it briefly. Finally, the judge announced that the suspicions were established. "Let's invite the plaintiff to speak." With that, Yi Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Did that mean that they had the upper hand? The lawyer that Guan Yanhong had hired was very eloquent. With a few words, he brought the focus back to Yi Yu. He insisted that Yi Yu was the one who had framed Guan Kui. That wasn't the only incident. At the same time, the plaintiff's lawyer brought up the incident from many years ago and insisted that Yi Yu was jealous and unresigned. She had always wanted to get rid of Guan Kui because of how outstanding Guan Kui was. That incident had destroyed Guan Kui's legs, but it hadn't killed her. Yi Yu was indignant and had been waiting for an opportunity to strike a second time. That was why the incident at the wedding had occurred. After that, the case, which was not simple in the first place, became even more difficult. At the last moment, Yi Yu brought up a crucial point of the case. Guan Kui's legs can walk. Guan Yanhong shouted from the audience, "Bullsh *T." There was an uproar at the scene, and soon, the judge announced the adjournment of the court. They still had to examine Guan Kui's body. Things were getting complicated. However, the other suspect mentioned by Lawyer Yi never appeared. It was as if Shen Luo and had vanished from the face of the earth. There was no movement at all. August 8th, heavy rain. It had been summer recently, and there was more and more rain. It was getting more and more inconvenient to travel. He seemed to have caught a cold. Recently he had a slight cold. However, the baby was still healthy, and everything was fine. The class went well, and everything was fine. It was just a little lonely. Even though I came into contact with a lot of people every day, and the neighbors who came and went took good care of me, I couldn't integrate into their world. I don't fit in with them. I want to go. The next stop was Li Town, Province G. It was raining cats and dogs. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Shen Luo and stood by the window of the guest house and looked out at the dark clouds covering the sky and the pedestrians running. He found it a little funny. Chapter 1558. On the third day of his escape, he hadn't contacted anyone. He hadn't given his family or anyone an explanation. His phone hadn't been switched on. Even Shen Luoan despised his evasion. He put down the wine glass. The empty bottles were piled up in the corner under the bed. The pungent smell of alcohol was pungent. Shen Luoan took out his phone that had been switched off and turned it on. In less than a minute, all sorts of messages bombarded his phone. Shen Luoan had expected it. He picked up his phone and glanced at it. He saw a piece of heavy news. Dad, Kuei is dead. Where are you? Shen Julia's mother. Luoan, something happened to Kuei. Why aren't you back yet? How much longer are you going to hide outside? Uncle Guan. If you come back, I'll break your legs. There were all sorts of messages and WeChat messages. Shen Luoan clicked on them one by one. The more he read, the colder his heart became. Shen Luo and had originally thought that they were just joking, but it was replaced by an indescribable seriousness. Guan Kuei is dead. Shen Luoan turned on his phone and called Shen Julia. Shen Julia seemed to be busy. It took him a while to answer the call. The moment he picked up, he heard Shen Julia's bombarding voice. You're finally willing to turn your phone on? Where have you been the past few days? Do you know what happened recently? Shen Luoan's expression was solemn. He felt a faint sense of relief as he asked, what happened to Kuei? Was it a collective joke? Or perhaps it was just a ploy to trick him back? After all, it was such an important day. Him leaving just like that would have a significant impact on the girl. Shen Luoan's wishful thinking was quickly shattered. Shen Julia's tone was solemn as he said, Guan Kuei is dead. Shen Luoan's heart sank to its lowest point. You poisoned her. After she drank it, she was sent to the emergency room, but she didn't make it. She died in the hospital. Shen Julia took a deep breath and said, Brother, if you wanted to marry her, why did you agree to marry her? Guan Kuei was still so young. How could you bear to lose such a precious life because of you? Shen Julia continued, You've let Yi down. You've let Sister Manting down. Now even Guan Kuei has died because of you. Doesn't your conscience feel uneasy? Shen Julia was speechless. Julia, you must be joking, right? How could Kei possibly die? Shen Luoan asked, feeling very down. Furthermore, it was Yi Yu. Although Yi Yu has a history with Guan Kuei, she would never do something like that. Julia, it can't be Yi Yu. She's not that kind of person. Shen Luoan said with certainty. There must be some misunderstanding, or something went wrong somewhere. Chapter 1559. Such a simple description made Shen Luoan's heart ache. Guan Kuei is dead. She was killed by Yi Yu? What a joke. Yi Yu couldn't have done such a thing. She wouldn't have been able to resist even if she had been killed, let alone kill someone. That kind of woman was as weak as a little lamb. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been treated this way by him all these years. Ever since Guan Kuei's death, everything had changed. Shen Luoan was silent for a moment before saying, I'll go back immediately. Tell me what happened in a nutshell. He laughed coldly and replied, What were you doing earlier? Guan Kuei is already dead. Guan Yanhong has already made it known that as long as he sees you, he'll kill you. He doesn't even give face to Dad. Your return now bodes ill rather than well. Yi Qianqian looked at Shen Julia coldly. When Shen Luoan heard that, he hung up the phone. He went to the bathroom and cleaned himself up. Soon after, he left the house and hailed a taxi to the airport. Even if Shen Luo and didn't know the whole story now, someone would tell him when he reached the capital. There was a new member in Yuxiu Villa. Li Jianyue and her two brothers were circling around it. It was a small puppy. Its fur was yellow, and its eyes were dark and bright. It was running around the little ones with its tongue out. Li Jianyue held a ball in her hand and shouted at the golden retriever, "Little Sue, come here." Little Sue had just arrived at the house that day and was unfamiliar with the name. When it saw Li Jianyue waving at it, it immediately wagged its tail and ran over. It circled around the little one's feet and cried out in a childish voice, "Woof! Ursu, don't get too close. Be careful not to get bitten. You'll have to get an injection." Su Qianxi's stomach was already slightly bulging. She looked at her daughter helplessly and said, "Mosin, look after your sister." Li Mosin immediately came over and pulled Li Jianyue's hand over. He said, "Ursu, don't let mommy worry. The puppy's not clean. Granny Rong is going to give it a bath." When Li Jianyue heard that she was going to bathe the puppy, her eyes lit up and she exclaimed, "Really? You're going to bathe the puppy? That's great." "Not now. In a few days, if the puppy can't adapt to the environment, it will not be acclimatized. When the puppy vomits, it will be too pitiful." Li Jianxian came forward. Li Jianyue didn't quite understand and said, "Mom, if you're going to Grandpa's house, can you bring us along? I don't want little Sue anymore. Anyway, little Sue isn't fun." "No, you have to stay at home. Great-grandpa hasn't been feeling well recently, so you can't go back to the old mansion. You have to be good and listen to Granny Rong. Do you hear me?" Li Jianyue was a little unhappy. She pouted and asked, "Then why can brother go?" The little boy looked at Li Jianxian unhappily and said, "Mommy is biased, and so is Daddy. Why is older brother going and not us? Be good at home with Brother Mosin. Brother is going to stay at Grandpa's house. There are no children at Grandpa's house, and no one to accompany him. It's very pitiful." Su Qianxi touched Li Jianyue's head. "I'll bring you delicious food when I come back." Chapter 1560. Listen to Mommy. Li Xiqing's voice was unquestionable. He walked over and said, "The dog can't replace its older brother, but it can play with you." Su Qianxi straightened her back. Her back was a little sore. "Let's go." "Okay." Li Xiqing came forward and held Su Qianxi's arm. "Are you still not feeling well?" "It's all right. It's much better than before." Su Qianxi held her waist and said, "Why didn't I have such a strong reaction when I was pregnant with them? This little guy must be very naughty." Li Xiqing smiled when he heard that and said, "It's good to be naughty. It's best if it's a girl. That way, our family will have 2 little princesses." "Ah, but I like a little brother." Li Jianyue immediately interrupted. She looked at Li Xiqing with a pair of big black eyes and said, "Daddy, I don't like a little sister. We don't know if it's a little brother or a little sister, but this is not a reason for you to run out. Go back." Li Xiqing's voice had a hint of a smile. The little girl was not afraid at all. She giggled and hugged Li Xiqing's thigh. "Daddy, take me with you. I want to see Grandpa too. I want to see Grandpa Rong and Grandma Rong and Grandpa Song. I haven't seen Grandpa Song for a long time." The little girl pouted and said, "Daddy, take me with you." "No." Li Xiqing tapped her little nose and said, "Nanny Rong, quickly take Ursa back. Mosin, take little sister back." Su Qianxi and Li Jianxian stood behind. Dace's eyes were full of reluctance as he looked at them. His snow-white and tender face was a little sad, and his eyes were a little red. Li Mosin came forward and held Li Jianyue's hand. He looked at Li Xiqing and said, "Daddy, will Dace live at Grandpa's house in the future? He's also going to school there. Won't he come back?" Li Xiqing looked at Li Mosin with a pair of dark eyes and nodded. "Yes." Li Mosin's little face was full of sadness. He looked at Li Xiqing and asked, "Why?" "Because there are no children in Grandpa's family. Grandpa hopes that a child can live with them. Grandpa and Grandma are old and need a sensible child to accompany them." Li Xiqing's explanation was reasonable. It was the truth, but it was hard to accept it when he said it out loud. How could Su Qianxi bear to part with him? When she saw his expression, all the reluctance in her heart was drawn out again. She squatted down and whispered, "He'll be back. Bring him back when the holidays are over." She looked at him innocently and said, "Older brother is going to school. He'll be back after school. I'll wait for older brother to finish school. Let's play together at night." Li Jianxian stood alone in the back. When he heard Li Jianyue's words, there was an indescribable sadness in his heart. He immediately turned around and opened the car door with red eyes. Then he sat in the car himself. Turning his head, Li Xiqing saw his silent movements and knew that he was not feeling well. However, this was the case in the early stages. Perhaps it would be better once he got used to it. Let's go. There's no time. Li Xiqing helped Su Qianxi up and said softly, "The children are not used to it now. They'll be fine when they get used to it." Su Qianxi nodded and quickly got into the car with Li Xiqing. Chapter 1561. Don't cry. Li Xiqing sat in the front passenger seat. His voice was a little serious. "You are a boy. What did I teach you?" Li Jianxian stopped crying and turned his head to look out the window. "Be strong. What is the purpose of us going to Grandpa's house this time?" "To accompany Grandpa." Li Jianxian lowered his head. His voice was a little timid, but he quickly said, "But I don't want to go." Objection overruled. Li Xiqing looked out the window and said, "We will accompany you. After you are familiar with the environment, we will leave." Su Qianxi hugged her son and said, "Don't be afraid. There are many fun things at Grandpa's house. Grandpa has already prepared a room for you at home. All the toys you want are there. There are also many children in the courtyard. You will be very happy." Not happy, not happy. Li Jianxian didn't speak. He looked out the window and bit his lip as tears slipped down. His 5-year-old, someone else's 5-year-old. When they arrived at the capital, it was already evening. After sending Li Jianxian to the Rong residence, Rong Haiyue and Rong Xian were very happy. They came forward with smiles on their faces and welcomed their little grandson in. When Li Jianxian saw Rong Haiyue and Rong Xian, he nodded politely and said, "Hello, Grandpa." "Hello, Grandma." Rong Xian and Rong Haiyue both smiled and said, "Hello, Desu. Come in. Grandpa and Grandma have prepared a room for you. Your grandmother personally decorated it for you. Come in and take a look." Li Jianxian smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He followed the old couple in. Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing had mainly sent the child to accompany the old couple. At the same time, they wanted to see how Yu Yu and Li Jinan were doing. He directly left the child here, and after informing them, he turned around and left. Li Jianxian looked at them, and the uneasiness in his heart grew. Looking at their backs, he called out, "Dad, Mom." The smiles on Rong Haiyue and Rong Xian's faces froze. Seeing Li Jianxian pretending to be strong despite being a little scared, they felt a little sorry for him. Compared to other 5-year-old children, Li Jianxian was much stronger. When Su Qianxi heard Li Jianxian's voice, she couldn't bear to see it happen. Her initial worry for Yi Yi dissipated. She glanced at Li Xiqing and said, "Hubby, go ahead. I'll stay here with the child. You can tell me what's going on when you come back." "Yes." Li Xiqing nodded his head and turned around to rub Li Jianxian's head gently. "Be a good boy. If you need anything, you can look for Grandpa and Grandma. They'll do everything for you." "Dad." Li Jianxian looked at him with a pair of eyes that were identical to his own and asked, "Will you still bring me back to Kingstown?" Li Xiqing pursed his lips. There was not much of a smile on his face. The hand that was rubbing his head paused slightly. Then he pinched his cheek and said, "Are you afraid that Dad doesn't want you anymore?" Li Jianxian curled his lips, lowered his head, and did not speak. Seeing this, Li Xiqing knew that he must have guessed correctly. He said, "You're young but you think a lot." Feeling helpless, he said, "Every one of my children will be an elite in the future. I will not lose any of them." Chapter 1562. More importantly, Mosen wasn't their biological son. Why did they send him to the capital and not Mosen? Could it be that they wanted to raise Mosen as their own child? So they didn't want him anymore? Su Qianxi was stunned when she heard that. She had never imagined that Mosen, at such a young age, would have such thoughts in his mind. Li Xiqing hadn't expected that either. When he heard that, he found it funny, and his mood became serious. Li Xiqing squatted down and looked at Li Jianqian with a serious expression. Do you know why I chose to send you here? Li Jianqian shook his head, looking aggrieved. Because you are my son and your mother's son. Grandpa has no children, and your mother is his only daughter. They are getting old and need someone to accompany them. Li Xiqing looked at his son and explained, which was rare. Ursu is a girl. She cries easily, is delicate, and is a little stupid. You know that, don't you? Li Jianqian nodded with tears in his eyes, but the tears in his eyes gradually disappeared. Do you know why I didn't send Mosin here? In fact, Li Xiqing was rarely patient with children. He rarely had such patience, except when he was explaining the exercises to them. Now he was staring at him and said word by word, because he is not our biological child. You also know that Mosin was adopted by us later on. He is our family, but he has nothing to do with Grandpa and Grandma. Do you know that? The tears in Li Jianqian's eyes had completely disappeared. He looked at Li Xiqing and nodded his head vigorously. Li Xiqing was a little relieved. He reached out and patted his head. Because you are our child, biological, so I sent you here. Firstly, you can accompany Grandpa and Grandma. Secondly, you can train. Do you still remember the sentence that Grandpa hung at the back of the study? What does it say? Li Jianqian thought for a moment before saying, the Li family doesn't raise useless people. It's good that you know. The Li family doesn't raise useless people. Only steel that has been tempered can become hard. You may be young now, but this is not a reason for you to be weak. I need you to become stronger. Li Xiqing looked at him with a serious expression and said, Great-grandfather is old, and Grandpa and Grandma are not young now. If one day I'm gone, you have to take care of the whole family, your mother and your sister. Do you hear me? Li Jianqian looked at Li Xiqing. His eyes were clear, and his face, which was very similar to Li Xiqing's, was moved. Even Rong Xian and Rong Haiwe were very surprised by his way of education. Was it really appropriate to feed such chicken soup to such a young child? What surprised them even more was that Li Jianqian didn't look like he didn't understand at all. Instead, he nodded his head very seriously and said, Yes. Recently, something happened to little uncle's girlfriend in the capital. Apart from bringing you here, your mother and I are also going to check on your little uncle's situation. Your little uncle's girlfriend might end up in jail. Any more serious, and he would be sentenced to death. Li Jianqian's eyes widened and he said, The police wrongly accused a good person? Little Aunt wouldn't do anything bad. We don't know yet. Daddy and Mommy are going to take a look. You stay at Grandpa's house and wait for us to come back. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.